Today's broadcast of the NLRL Solo Multiclass Endurance Championship is brought to you by Malois Transport, oversized cargo and trucking logistics specialists of Quebec. Visit their website on www.malois-transport.ca. Welcome to Nurburgring, Germany, race fans, for round 6 of the NLRL Solo Multiclass Endurance Championship, powered by Malois Transport and live exclusively here on TRTN. You join us past the season midway for a trip to one of motorsports' holiest arenas, the iconic Nurburgring, and more specifically the Nurburgring GP circuit, introduced in 1985 as a new Grand Prix circuit for Germany after the Nordschleife was discontinued for use as the German Grand Prix in 1976, the German Grand Prix then returning to the Hockenheimring until the mid-1980s, where the Nurburgring would once again hold a German Grand Prix, that being in 1985. The track saw intermittent use as an F1 venue, but was ultimately disbanded after 2020, its last encounter only 5 years ago as the 2020 Eiffel Grand Prix during Formula One's bizarre 2020 lockdown season. It has become best known as a major part of the Nurburgring 24 layout, where it joins onto the mighty Nordschleife to create Europe's ultimate endurance racetrack. In the modern day, the NLS, European Truck Racing Championships, DTM and GT World Challenge Europe Series all run rounds here at the Nurburgring. Comprised just shy of 3.2 miles and 16 turns of FIA Grade 1, this magnificent marvel of German engineering is often overshadowed by its larger Nordschleife counterpart. But don't let its proximity fool you. The GP Strecke, as it's known, is a real gem of a track. A great balance of technical and open sections alike have proven time and time again to be the recipe for absolute riots of races. And that's what we're hoping to see today as we enter round 6. Trailing off of a wet and wild round 5 in Zandvoort, we gear up for yet another exciting installment of the Solo Multiclass Endurance Championship. Before the end of free practice today, we're on board with Anton Pol as we recount the championship standings. Starting things off then in the Premier category, GT3, Tyler Vermaak leads with 115 points. Cas van Veltzen in second with 82 points. Anton Pol on your screens at the moment jumps up to third with 73 points in the championship, putting himself 11 points ahead of Ilkay Kilinkoglu in fourth. Ben Cheeseman rounds out the top 5 only a single point away. 10 points behind him is Kieran Rodd in 6th position, and Mir Ismail Rashidov in 7th with 45 points. Liam Bello in 8th with 24 points, and then rounding out the top 10 in 9th position at the moment, Toby Cyril, and then in 10th is Kowalczyk, I believe, there, and in 10th with 18 points. Again, still wrestling with how to pronounce that last name. That was Radosław Kowalczyk. He was the Porsche in round 5 of the championship, and most bizarrely known for being out on the track during the GT4 stint of qualifying, set to come up later on today. We've got just about 26 minutes of free practice today, and we're on board with Anton Pol in bright and sunny conditions, in stark contrast to where things were last Saturday at the circuit Zandvoort. Down in the GT4 standings then, Christian Lebay leads with 116 points to Hayden Proger, who, despite not being able to compete in the last round, citing injuries, maintains second place by a wide margin, 92 points at the moment. James Mason makes third place with 74 points. David Silf in fourth with 65 points, and Scott Milbank in the top 5 with 59 points. 2 points away from him is Carl Martel in 6th place with 57 points. Norbert Horvath with Janetta in 7th with 35 points. Joint 8th position between Jake Garrett and Jamie Ball with 33 points, and then rounding out that top 10, Timothy Jolicoeur with 22. So it's going to be an exciting round today. It's always a pleasure to be here at the Nurburgring. We've been here a handful of times over a myriad of series in our time covering GT racing here on TRTN. Very rarely, though, have we been able to see it under the auspice of multi-class racing. So it's going to make a very, very curious spectacle indeed to see that broad difference between GT4 and GT3. This is our second race of the day as well, coming off of the trails of the HCCL GT4 Challengers season opener in a wet and wild Monza. That was a fantastic race to have covered only just a few hours ago. And we do get to see some familiar faces on this grid joining us from more so down in the GT4 category. Right now, though, we see with Anton Pol as he makes his way to the checkered line here to finish his first flying lap of free practice. He does a 156.132, but it is considered an invalid lap, so citing concerns over track limits. He makes his way down towards turn 1 here. And to recount the previous race winners, now, of course, Zandvoort saw the career third in the Solo Multiclass Endurance Championship for both the GT3 and GT4 leaders. Tyler Vermaak and Christian Lebay both picked up their third wins of the season at Zandvoort in a total Malois racing lockout. And looking further back through the season, Ilkay Kilinkoglu and David Silf were the winners at round 1. Vermaak and Labay at round 2. Vermaak and Proger at round 3 in Imola. Pole and Labay in Misano, and then Vermaak and Labay once again at the last round just gone at Zandvoort. Looking at where the calendar is, you'll note that there are new changes to the calendar, more so that the events towards the end of the championship have been pushed forward now, with Indianapolis coming up on the 27th of September and Zolder on the 4th of October. Now, this is in line with some announcements set to come up by the end of next week. It is going to be a very, very exciting time to be tuning into TRTN, as we have plenty of new things coming up, both from our friends here at NLRL, as well as some new clients coming up into October and September time. It is going to be a very exciting end to 2025. More to follow on that, though, as we see with Pole still out on track. Let's get a look around the field here, as we do have some new drivers with us today. You can see here's Timothy Jolicoeur, now 10th in the GT4 Championship standings, making his way through Bitten Warsteiner. There's Christian Labay, the GT4 leader. We can see as well, joining us in chat, Byron Forrest. Byron Forrest is tuned in. Of course, we've seen him throughout the Sunday League as well. We've also seen him over on the CPL GT4 Pro-Am Cup America Series. So it's a bit of a mouthful of a name, but we do remember Byron Forrest. Welcome to the Twitch chat, as it were. It's going to be an exciting round of the championship. It's always a pleasure to be at the Nurburgring. It's a fantastic track from the word go. We can see one of our new drivers today, hailing from Slovakia, and the number 12 Ferrari, Daniel Durga. He's one of a handful of new drivers coming into today's round. We actually scrolled past one of them here, Miguel Rascon, with the number 37 Mercedes. He'll be competing down in a much more packed out GT4 field, but we can see there is a healthy dosage of GT3 showing up, one of which as well, now at the back of the GT3 standings, Radosław Kowalczyk in the Poland flag-clad 991 Porsche. Can see one of the other new drivers as well, Mateusz Blaszka in the number 4 McLaren. He'll also be on this grid for today, but it seems to be Anton Pole's field to control. Now, we are waiting for the arrival of a certain driver, but I don't actually know 100% if he will be making his way into today's round. And that was the news coming personally to us as well from a certain Mr. Tyler Vermaak, and that was that the Lexus era that we've come to know as one of the longest stints the South African talent has stayed with one manufacturer has come to an end as he moves back to McLaren. However, we do not see him on this grid, so confusion arises as to whether or not we'll ever see the debut of that Lexus today, and that is a big wipeout against the wall for the number 486 of Anton Pole. A big slap there after the end of, what was that there, on the end of the Schumacher S's as well, up over the curbs towards Bitten Warsteiner, and just caught over the curb there, spun into the wall. That is a very nasty off for the Nissan, but fortunately it happened in free practice and not the race. 21.5 minutes here before the start of qualifying to bring up the structure of the Solo Multiclass Endurance Championship. We have a 40-minute qualifying session coming up. The first 20 minutes will be dedicated to the GT3s. The remaining 20 minutes will be dedicated to the GT4s as part of a twin-stage qualifying session structure in the Solo Multiclass Endurance Championship. And then that'll join on to a 2-hour race today here at the Nurburgring. And it's going to be one of 2 times this weekend with NLRL that we visit the Nurburgring GP circuit. If you're joining us tomorrow at 6:30 BST, you'll be joining us for the Sunday League's next round at the very same circuit. So a double set of races here at the Nürburgring, and what a treat it is to start things off then in the melting pot that is the SME. You see here sharing the same stretch of the track, Carl Martel and Anton Pole. Pole has been wrestling with that Nissan. Let's be pretty crystal clear on this. Looking at the balance of performance for GT3, we can see that Nissan aren't exactly dealing with the most significant of changes coming into today's round. Only 6 kilos shared off of the GTR. They share that statistic with Porsche, so Radosław Kowalczyk would be feeling all too the same in the number 991, also having lost 6 kilos. Ferrari will gain 4, and looking around here, Ford gaining 6, BMW gaining 18. Then into the high negatives here, we've got McLaren losing 11 and Audi losing 19. Note that the Lexus RCF is no longer on that list, as we have now lost the last of our Lexuses on this grid. You can see here, here's Radosław Kowalczyk, number 991, on his way down through turn 7. We'll get a comprehensive tour of the Nürburgring GP circuit in a moment's time here as we head on to the discussion of the GT4 balance of performance. Let's catch on board with one of the GT4s out in the field. Timothy Jolicoeur being our example today as he makes his way down through the hairpin. Aston Martin will lose 13 kilos in GT4. Chevrolet being the second among them to lose high amounts of 5 kilo reduction there for the Camaro, 4 kilos shed off of the Mercedes and 1 kilo shed off of the BMWs. Then into the positives, McLaren gaining 3, Ginetta gaining 9 and Porsche gaining a whopping 20. It's the second week running that Porsche has been on the backside of balance of performance today in the Solo Multiclass Endurance Championship. Not a great time to use the Cayman. As we check around the field here, we only have, looking at our screens here, only 8 cars in the session today. So a very, very short grid, I would say. A very small grid we're dealing with here in Nurburgring. Oh my word, a big slide there by Timothy Jolicoeur. See here with Radoslav Kowalczyk. So we'll stay on board with Kowalczyk as he becomes our unofficial tour guide here for the Nürburgring GP circuit. We're on board with Kowalczyk as we head immediately down into turn 1 here. The Yokohama S, as it's known, as it can also cut off just the left-hand side here on the exit of turn 1 to become part of the Nürburgring 24 circuit. We head immediately up through turns 2 and 3 of the Mercedes Arena section. Down through turn 3 we go, then in toward immediately a sharp right-hander at turn 4. Very easy for drivers to get side by side here and end up in a bit of a fender bender situation. On the exit of turn 4 then, on the run down what is technically a kinked straight to the right here, and then we immediately come down into the left-hander at turn 5, then into turn 6. So my mistake in calling it turn 7 as turn 6 there. On our way now down to the actual turn 7. And another opportunity for drivers to get side by side here. Now up through the Schumacher S's, one of the more famous parts of the Nürburgring GP circuit. Up through turns 8 and 9 we go. Surprisingly easy for drivers to find their way into trouble, as we saw earlier on from Anton Pohl's point of view. Now as we head into Bitten Warsteiner at turns 10 and 11. A monstrous sound of that flat 6 engine then screaming down towards Hatzenbeck, sometimes also called the Advanbogen at turn 12. Then into the Vidal chicane we go. Then at Coca-Cola curve here at turn 16. So that's a comprehensive tour of the circuit at hand. I am a little confused by how small the grid is, though, today. We're expecting more turnouts. We check through the field here. We can still see that the GT4 leader is among the pack, having joined today. We can see it's primarily in the GT3's new faces. We see Daniel Durga and Mateusz Blaszka there, the number 12 and the number 4, the new faces of the Solo Multiclass Endurance Championship right now reside inside the pit lane. And that's the same story for the new GT4, Miguel Rascon. Right now, in the remaining 16 minutes of free practice, it's mostly the industry regulars getting their time on track. We can see a new car has joined as well. That's Ben Cheeseman we can see in the paddock, and very quickly we can see Mateusz Blaszka making his way out and has stopped at the end of the pit lane there for whatever reason. On with the number 4 just to see what the issue might be. So a practice start then, so it seemed, for the number 4 on his way out. And I must say, very rare is it we get to see McLaren in any colour besides orange. And I don't know what it is, but yellow really does seem to suit the 720S. I'm not sure about anyone else in the chat at the moment, but it is a rather striking set of colours there on Blaszka's car. That is very, very snazzy indeed. Having a look around the field, we can see there's the more regular colours we're used to. For McLaren, the black and gold of the K1 Esports team there from Ben Cheeseman, number 114, joining late into the session. It is a bit of a lonely session today. We are hoping to see more drivers on their way in, but it is a very bizarre state of affairs. We had even more sign-ups than the ones that have joined as well. And the new drivers for round 6 of the championship, Rascon, Blaska and Durga. I'm still left with heads are scratching and questions are wondering. Now, in Zandvoort, we were able to discuss a developing bit of news, and that is surrounding the return of the Console Endurance Series. Well, I have information to hand, and while no official confirmation is out yet, we are very, very close now to having an official word on the return of the Console Endurance Series. You heard it first before in the rounds gone by here on NLRL, but we are very, very close now. I would say probably within about a week you will know of the return of the Console Endurance Series. Of course, one of the largest championships on console ACC. We've also got some rather interesting developments in the background at the moment regarding another big major series over with a different league that we look to be covering come October time here on TRTN. We'll have more to provide on that once all of the paperwork has been signed off. But it's looking very hopeful for the last quarter of 2025 here on TRTN. We are looking for a packed out schedule. And among that will still be the Solo Multiclass Endurance Championship, but I'm so told that there are some interesting little developments on the way here in NLRL that I can't speak too much of yet, but I have been briefed on what it is, and I'm very much so behind the concept in terms of support. So we see here with Christian Lebay just making his way around the Mercedes Arena section. So there is, oh, here we go, a new driver. Yes, fantastic. Norbert Horvath now joining the session with Janetta. Ooh, had me genuinely worried for a little bit that it was going to be a sub-2-figure grid. Oh, wow, that was going to be a tough one to cover today. But so I'm seeing here, it is actually quite a fairly even balance of GT3s and GT4s, if you dare believe that. We've got, at the moment, 5 GT4s on the field, and looking at it here, 5 GT3s. So you can't go wrong with that. It may be 10 cars, but it's for once in this championship, a 50-50 split. It has been a little bit of an oddball, the Solo Multiclass Endurance Championship. I think it got to one point with Zolder before that was pushed back, but there was only 2 GT3s on the field. And we see there now joining as well, Alex Albert, who joined us last round at Zandvoort in the number 36 Chevrolet, was one of the new drivers to have joined for round 5 of the championship. So I would say never on the end of free practice, yielding some more drivers today. We can already see 2 new GT4s onto the field. Then Norbert Horvath, who currently resides inside of that top 10 for the GT4 standings, and Alex Albert, one of the new signings from the Malois racing team, joining us after round 5. We also have Ben Cheeseman out on track at the moment, making his way up the Schumacher S's in the 114. Sadly, we don't have any data to go off of in terms of qualifying predictions. But with the logistics spread so thin in this championship, that's really not come to be much a surprise anymore. So out through Varstein, I know we see Cheeseman, and there is Tyler Vermack. So that was one of the biggest announcements of the last week here on the Solo Multiclass Endurance Championship. Came from, I think, just about 48 hours ago, as a matter of fact, was Vermack's move away from Lexus to McLaren. And you can see now the official livery of the 835 McLaren. And so I'm told, Vermack has told me this personally, and I'm paraphrasing, so it's not an exact quote, but put in this way, he is bringing his A game to this. This may be a new car, may be a debut here. He's driven that McLaren before, and he's done his homework. He's coming into this all cylinders firing, all guns blazing, both arms swinging, what have you. He is going to try and gun for another victory here. And bear in mind, the regulations on vehicle changes do allow for one free change, and then every change thereafter halves your championship points. So he's playing with ice here. It's a gamble away from the security that Lexus brought to the table, and it's definitely going to be one of the more divisive moves of his career. Make or break, really, for the South African talent who currently leads the GT3 Championship. He cannot afford a move reckless, or a move as reckless. So this has all been very carefully measured and considered by Vermaak and by the Malois team, that this is the best foot forward. And now speculations are aloof as to why Vermaak, after one of the most secure chapters of his career, would move away from the confines of Lexus back to a manufacturer that was but before a stepping stone in his move to more secure footing in terms of vehicle choice. And I think personally, and it's a theory that's been shared with a few other people amongst the paddock, that this is data gathering. As we know right now, we had confirmation from Vermaak and from his representatives over at the Malois Racing team that they will be competing in the Console Endurance Series Season 2, whenever that does arrive. Right now, it's within the next 2 months is what I can tell you, but the dates are not confirmed final. Those are still under negotiation between ourselves, NLRL, and a few other clients interested in the championship. The bottom line is, we reckon that the move here to McLaren is reinforcing the idea of going to endurance racing full-time. This is one of the best cars for endurance racing. We saw it dominate the field during the Console Endurance Series at the hands of the exclusive racing team. McLaren were atop the charts almost every single race. Of the 8 races that were ran in Season 1, half of them were won by one car. And that was the number 788 exclusive racing McLaren. So with the Lexus being not deemed efficient enough for endurance racing, could that be the reinforcing factor? Moving to modern machinery is a compromise, but one that is going to be probably best undertaken by a driver with at least some skin in the game. See, at the moment, a McLaren does lead the timing charts, and we missed out on it, but it was Mateusz Blaszka. But there he goes, he disappears. So I don't know whether or not that was a disconnect by Blaszka. That is a bit of a peculiar one. LeBay leading the charts for GT4. Now, it's going to be a mixed bag through free practices, as the name would suggest. A lot of drivers are now just experimenting, they're trialing new setups, and also just getting to learn the lay of the land here. We can see Daniel Durga, one of the new drivers for today, and one of the first drivers ever here on TRTN to be hailing from Slovakia, and the number 12, making his way out of Warsteiner down towards Hatzenbeck. I must say, it is quite refreshing in a series that's quite dense and rich with more complex and colourful liveries to see just a good old-fashioned red Ferrari. It's something very comforting about just a normal red Ferrari. No bells, no whistles, just straight up Rosso, was it Rosso Corsa, I believe that is there. Too dark to be Rosso Scuderia, too bright to be Rosso Mugello. Ferrari red, nerd fact. So we see down through turn 1, the number 486 of Anton Pol. And now I am puzzled here. Anton Pol has been around the track several a time and yet has not set one valid flying lap. This definitely does strike me as a bit of a peculiar one, knowing that not only is he capable of fast times, but he's also capable of wins, as we saw in Misano at round 4, where in which he took the win ahead of Tyler Vermaak when he was driving for Lexus. So we know that Pol is race-winning material. Could it be the case that he's gearing himself up for a lot more of a hard challenge here in round 6 of the championship, knowing that the Nissan, like the Lexus, is a machine well past its time? Or are we seeing the ruminations of a more experimental approach from Anton Pol? Only time will tell us different. We see here with Daniel Durga out through turn 7 on his way to the Schumacher S's. So following him down through Hatzenbecks, then to the Vidal chicane. Now, there's two variations of this chicane that exist, and you can see we just passed up the first part of it. Looking on the map here, I believe it is the NGK chicane, of course named after the spark plug company of the same name. And that's the one used in the 2020 Eiffel Grand Prix. We use the much faster Vidal chicane, which is almost flat out. See Durga across the line, 1.6 seconds then off the fastest time, currently set by Ben Cheeseman in the 114 McLaren. So currently 3 GT3s having set times of the 6 available on track. Cheeseman leads that charge ahead of Durga and Radoslav Kowalczyk in the number 991. And then into the GT4s, it is Chevy 123 right now. Lebay from Martel from Jolicoeur. For those of you who've been watching the Competizione Performance League's GT4 Pro-Am Cup America series, we wrapped up on round 2 just earlier this week, as a matter of fact, over at Alton Park. And this man in particular, Karl Martel, in a certain fight with the number 58 of Timo de Tosto, had a last lap blinder down towards the line. On the very last corner, after one mistake from the number 58, Martel dove to the occasion. And on the second race of the day, at race 2, took home 3rd place on the very last corner. And that was probably one of the best moments we've seen that season. Admittedly, we're only 2 rounds in with plenty more on the horizon. So keep a close eye on this one in particular. Christian Lebay narrowly missed out on a win today in the High Caliber Community League's GT4 Challenge season opener. At Monza, he missed out to the number 55 of Asahi Ota in tumultuous rainy conditions at the Autodromo Nazionale di Monza. Now the Canadian gets to pick up the helm here in a much drier Nurburgring, Germany. We'll see exactly how that pans out. Looking into how much time we have left in free practice, just under 3 minutes as a matter of fact. So to recount how qualifying works here in the Solo Multiclass Endurance Championship, it's comprised of 40 minutes total and a twin stage system. The opening 20 minutes of this 40-minute session are given to the GT3s. The remaining 20 minutes are given to the GT4s. It's so that they don't trip over one another on the track. One of the worst parts of multi-class endurance racing is having to deal with the slower categories, but fortunately, they'll only have to deal with that on race day. We see here with Kowalczyk down through turn 6. I must say, it has been solid improvement by Kowalczyk. He was around 5 seconds off the beat. Now he's drawn that into about 3.2. So all of this time spent on track is rewarding him there, but he is still having his troubles, as we've just seen, overcooking the brakes down into turn 7. That could be a pressing issue on the horizon for the Porsche. Heading into quali, and moreover heading into that race, as we've still yet to see track appearances by Vermac. And also by Albert there, who's joining him in the pits in the number 36 Chevrolet. Just around a minute and a half left to go then, on what is going to be definitely a bit of a smaller grid, but with any hopes there will still be action dense coming into this round at the Nurburgring. And if we don't get that, then there's always the Sunday League tomorrow. And so, before we get to the end of free practice, let's discuss our 2 articles of news today. In Formula 1, Oscar Piastri takes pole position at the Dutch Grand Prix. And then in the World Rally Championship, Kalle Rovanperä leads into day 2 at the brand new Ueno Rally del Paraguay. And that is gearing up to be a very exciting rally. I mean, it's proven thus far to be a surprisingly unique addition to the 2025 calendar. One of 3 new events besides Gran Canaria and Saudi Arabia. Gran Canaria, which we went to earlier this year, was a fantastic rally indeed, hailing some of its elements from the European Rally Championships visit to Gran Canaria, and also Saudi Arabia, which will be towards the end of the championship this year, that we've still yet to see much of, with speculation that it could be closer to the older Rally Jordan than it could be to anything related to the Dakar Rally. But of course, we yet know the itinerary for that one. That's going to be a very interesting round to study by the end of 2025. That replaces Japan as the final round in the World Rally Championships. Right now in Paraguay, it has definitely proven itself a worthy contemporary to fellow South American round at the Rally Chile Bio Bio. Down towards the line, we just saw Jolicoeur couldn't find his way up past Norbert Horvath, but that Ginetta really has been defined by a legacy of punching well above its weight. And in the hands of Norbert Horvath, we've seen this thing scratch its way towards podiums here in the Solo Multiclass Endurance Championship. So at the end of free practice, right now ranks up in Division 3rd, ahead of Jolicoeur's number 69 Chevrolet by only about, looking at it here, just under half a second. So we'll be waiting here for the start of the GT3 qualifying to start off qualifying today for round 6 of the championship. For those GT3s, I think all eyes are going to be on Ben Cheeseman. One of his best opportunities here for a front row start. Right now is already proving pretty solid. Session markers here for 155.548, the end of free practice. But you can see he was rocketing his way up the Schumacher S's, potentially looking at an improvement to a low 155, perhaps into a high 154. Bear in mind, we've still yet to see track data from Tyler Vermaak on his return to McLaren for the first time on our screens since the second season of the NLRL Sunday League. And I believe he only ran that for round 6 of the championship. So a very, very unique time then. Daniel Durga calls it quits there on the free practice session. He'll be gearing up for the start of qualifying. So Cheeseman to the line. .155.176, so it was an improvement for him at the end of free practice. That's a very good sign then for the 114 heading into qualifying today. That is a solid time to kick things off then for Cheeseman. Durga in second, Kowalczyk in third. The rest of the GT3s having yet set a time. So
Green light, go, go, go.
So GT3 qualifying is underway. As we start the session off, it's only Anton Pol on his way out there. So the early bird out of the gates here. And Codes Racing 919 joining us in the chat saying, "You're a solid commentator. I can smell the racing passion." You sure that's not sweat? It's about 40 degrees in the recording studio. Good Lord. I tell you, the amount of heat coming off of these two. I've got the PC on full whack and the Xbox on full whack. If you're smelling anything, it's definitely not the racing passion. So we're a minute into qualifying. We start things off with the GT3s. Anton Pol leads the charge then out through turn 7. We just see making his way onto the track right now is Ben Cheeseman. In through the Mercedes Arena section. Out through turn 4, now turn 5. Kicks up one of the cones there. It seems almost tradition for drivers to do that now. Every time we've been to the Nurburgring, someone has punted those cones sky high, whether it be during the race or during qualifying. Now we can also see out onto the track through the Mercedes Arena section for his first drive since Sunday League Season 2 at McLaren is Tyler Vermaak. And now a lot of expectations are riding on this new performance for him here. He spent the longest time of his career at Lexus now in what is seeming to be one of the more comfortable and defining chapters of his sim racing career. The move back to McLaren is very clearly the mark of some kind of further ambition and goal alongside the Malois racing team, as it doesn't really seem like something Vermaak himself would have made the decision on hadn't there been a goal behind it, as Lexus was already rewarding him plenty enough. And even for these longer 2-hour races, it was still a plenty capable machine. So a lot of this is in anticipation of goals further up the road for Vermaak and for the Malois racing team. So this is widely speculated as a mule car, that this is going to be the data gatherer for the Malois racing team's endeavours in long-form endurance racing, which, so we're told, is going to be up to 6 hours, perhaps even more for Season 2 of the console endurance series. Right now we can see the baby steps, as it were, as he's adjusting quite massively from one machine to another. So Anton Pol on his flying lap then will stay on board with the number 486 as the first time of our session. Sadly, as mentioned before, we don't have any data to go off in terms of qualifying predictions, so we'll then move on to the subject once again of balance of performance. Nissan find themselves on the negatives here, so they are losing weight for this race, and so too will Porsche and McLaren of the competing cars in this round. So of the cars on the grid, you'll note that Pole, Cheeseman, Vermac and Kowalczyk will all be seeing benefit in today's round of the championship. Those of them using the Ferrari, so the case of Daniel Durga, will not be seeing so much the same. The Ferrari gaining 4 kilos, but to be completely honest, that's a negligible difference compared to what either BMW or Audi would have been receiving had they shown up to today's round of the championship. You see here, through the Vidal chicane goes Anton Pol. So he's got a very good chance here to fight for another race win. He managed to do so tooth and nail back in Misano only a few rounds ago. And it was a very rough day for him at round 5 of the championship. He crosses the line then at 1:55.495 by Anton Pol. Next to the line will be the number 12, Daniel Durga, to, I believe, start a flying lap here. Well, we will see from the Ferrari as he crosses the line. Yes, it is to start a flying lap. So let's catch on board with the next driver to the line. That's Ben Cheeseman on his way out of Warsteiner towards turn 12 here at Hatzenbeck. Down towards the Vidal chicane. So could it be a session dominated by McLaren? Back onto balance of performance. It's 11 kilos for the 720S. So really, if anyone was going to be seeing a front row, you could bargain on it being one of the two, if not both, of the McLarens in this field. Down to the line then goes Ben Cheeseman at 1:55.495 to beat. Misses it by just shy of 600ths of a second there. So still very, very close for the start of qualifying. Next time that we're waiting to see here, out through turn 12 at Hatzenbeck, here's Tyler Vermac on his way to the Vidal chicane. Leaping over that second curb as well. So he is giving it quite a lot of gusto in these corners. Down to the line then, and also misses out on excuse me, misses out on Pole's time by 300ths of a second. So whatever that Nissan has got geared in, it is properly solid here in the court of Anton Pol. Now, this could be suggested that perhaps these are the baby steps for Tyler Vermac to start learning, or I suppose relearning, that 720S. You can see it's not been the most confident of entries into a qualifying session. Bear in mind, this is the whiplash he's receiving from having spent the longest time with an old-fashioned front-engined car. Now moving into the court of a more modern mid-engine car is definitely going to be a bit of a shock to the system. It's almost as polarizing as going from a modern front engine to a modern rear engine. You've just got to drive the car in a completely different way, especially with those mid-engine cars. You find more often than not you end up turning under the brakes, so it's a case where you almost let the brakes steer you around. A new pole time then at 1:55.452 by Daniel Durga on entry on his first run here in the NLRL Solo Multiclass Endurance Championship. The Slovakian driver in the number 12 taking the fastest time by only 400ths of a second. So despite the diminutive scale of this GT3 field, we are not in shortage for incredibly close qualifying. And the bright and sunny conditions here are really doing numbers on these tyres. Getting a look at the track conditions, it is incredibly hot here, uncharacteristically so for German summer to winter time. A 27-degree track surface temperature. Those tyres, they're going to be in a state of shifting matter by the end of most of these laps here. You'll be looking at liquefied tyres by the end of most qualifying runs. Ben Cheeseman takes the new fastest time, bumping the margins up quite a hefty bunch there to 0.8 of a second in difference as he puts himself even further up the field. Vermac joins him there, closing the gap down to just over 0.1 of a second out. Both of them now in the 1:54s. Daniel Durga and Anton Pol outside of that at the moment, closer to each other than they are to the drivers up ahead. Check to see then what the time is from Anton Pol. We also still await to see what the first times on the chart are going to look like for Radoslav Kowalczyk in the 991 Porsche, who's been struggling to lay in a time over the last sort of 7.5 minutes of quali today for the GT3s. And now he got into a little bit of trouble last round. For those of you who remember the Zandvoort qualifying, that he did not heed the instructions of the first 20 minutes of qualifying being GT3 only and the last 20 minutes being GT4 only, and actually found himself on the grid with the GT4s. And that was a very awkward time indeed. And ultimately, he was out there for naught as he didn't find any improvement amongst the GT3s. And ended up kind of just finding himself right where he shouldn't have been. Hopefully this time around, no such shenanigans will occur for Kowalczyk. You see that Anton Pol has shifted himself ahead of Durga now for third and nearly within a tenth and a half to pole position. So even though Cheeseman has extended the margin, the rest of the field is following suit here. And I think it's as the drivers are getting a little bit more accustomed to the high heat in those Pirellis here on what is a very hot and dry round here at the Nurburgring. Now that margin being opened up yet again on that last lap, 154.465 now puts Vermaak 2 tenths away. He crosses the line here, also does not find an improvement on that last lap just gone. So Anton Pol resides in third for now, Daniel Durga in fourth. Radoslav Kowalczyk has yet to have set a time here. If he doesn't manage to set one in the next 10 minutes, he'll be starting at the back behind the GT4s. Speaking of the GT4s, let's see if we can get a view here. And here is the eager waiting of Christian Lebay. He is waiting now at the end of this pit lane, much like how James Mason also used to do in the GT4 field. And so I'm told as well, this is actually a solid tactic as the GT4s retain quite a lot of heat in those tyres. And with the track being so hot, Lebay won't have to spend anywhere near as much time warming the tyres up or using any drastic processes that would otherwise excessively wear the tyres before they're in prime use. You can just sit there and let the tyres feed off of the ambient heat, and they'll be in solid temperature by the time he leaves the pit lane. So across the line goes Daniel Durga. No improvement for the number 12 on that last lap just gone. We're past the midway mark for the GT3 qualifying. Just under 10 minutes left to go before the start of the GT4 qualifying. And now we finally get to see a time on the charts. Radoslav Kowalczyk, 3.995 seconds off of pole position there. And that could prove to be a bit of a problem for the 991 because I'm pretty sure that is teetering into the very, very fast end of what GT4 is capable of. So Kowalczyk runs the imminent risk of being out-qualified by the fastest of the GT4. So that would be looking in the direction right now of Martel, Lebay and Jolicoeur, the twin, or the triplets of Chevrolet. We actually have the quaternity. Or the I don't actually know what the the 4 version of triplets is, but the foursome of the Chevrolets. With Alex Albert now part of that mix as well, bearing the MRT mark. So Vermaak now on to pole position, as we've just seen now across the line as he pulls back into the pits. A 154.165. He's ahead of Cheeseman by exactly 3 tenths of a second. That puts Cheeseman down to second. Pole at the moment in third. Durga fourth. And Kowalczyk in fifth. So that's all of our GT3s at the moment. So it did take him a few goes around, but I think we're starting to see Vermaak slowly get the hand of this car. Now, what has me quite worried is, of course, with a 2-hour race ahead of us in conditions such as these, the tyres will be wearing out at a rate of knots here, and the McLaren is notoriously unstable at the Nürburgring. We've seen it before, and historical accounts prove every single time that a McLaren stacks it somewhere on the Nürburgring. It is an almost inevitability that one will, and with only 2 on the grid, it's a 50-50 coin toss at all if either of them do so. And with Vermaak still learning or relearning the fundamentals of the 720S after a long time away from the McLaren, spending the majority of his time learning a very unique form of driving in the court of the 2015 Lexus RCF GT3, it does place him the likely candidate here, and you can see already wrestling the car out of turn 5. Or turn 4, sorry. Does place him a likely candidate for some kind of incident. So I don't know whether or not the mentality for Tyler Vermaak right now is going to be that after qualifying today, just taper things off, go for a bit of a measured drive here. It's all about collecting data and push the car to the limit if you think you can take it. But that's really the case where he's going to be spending the majority of today's race finding the limit The scary thing about the McLaren, of course, when you find the limit, you are right on the cusp of a terrifying spin out, as we've seen time and time again. We have Tech Steph in chat asking, hello, do you see TRTN doing some Le Mans Ultimate Series in the future? Funny you should say that, because we are gearing up to do that. Now, I can't confirm as to which series or which leagues are interested at this time, because there aren't any. But the clients that I have been working with have expressed a unique interest in wanting to get some Le Mans Ultimate content going. Me personally, I think that it is the next step forward for console sim racing. Of course, the news having come through quite recently that Le Mans Ultimate is going to be coming to console. The late stage discussions are already there between the developers for Le Mans Ultimate and Sony and Microsoft. So it is almost inevitable that it will arrive on console. And the day that it does is possibly the day this game becomes outmoded. And really, I am quite, I don't know, excited or afraid. It's a mixture of both, really, for Le Mans Ultimate. Because the game, so I'm told, it is described as feeling a lot like ACC. So the transferable skill is there. And for a lot of drivers who spend the majority of their time here on ACC doing endurance races, will be looking for possibly the epicenter of endurance racing being the World Endurance Championship. So there will be this great migration of players over to that. The case therein, though, is can the infrastructure and systems that are still being worked on, mind you, handle a player count of this size? We know that right now, even for ACC on console, things can be very, very shaky. You can either have flawless 100% perfect servers, or you can have nightmare after nightmare after nightmare. And believe me, we've seen an ample share of both. We see their trouble for Tyler Vermack up these Schumacher S's, finding the limits there of the 835 with the last 5 minutes of GT3 qualifying left to go. With Le Mans Ultimate, we would love to. To answer your question shortly, we would love to do that. And yes, I can see us doing that, but there is a lot of fears around wanting to do it. There's a lot more investment required now for Le Mans Ultimate against ACC. We've had ACC a lot longer than we've had Le Mans Ultimate. Le Mans Ultimate's DLC and the game, it's quite a lot of money to sink into just one game. And then also you've got paying for the servers, you've got paying for what's it, the race control, if I'm not mistaken, whatever the main app that they use for that is. There's a lot to consider from our point of view as broadcasters, and also for league owners, which we've worked extensively alongside to help provide backbone infrastructure for various series across our field of operations. We're able to chip in and provide advice where we can. As before TRTN was a thing, we were TRR, we were a league of our own running things for ACC. We had a whole team in which we had guides running ACC series through TRR. We were running F1 series through TRR. We even ran some rally series through TRR. So we know the fundamentals of how much this costs and how much this can wear down on people. And with LMU, if it's even a percentile more streamlined than what we have in the current day for ACC, this game will vanish. I think the day that comes to console is probably the last time we cover races on ACC. Not because we don't want to. We love this game. We've loved working with this game. It's been probably the most lucrative market for us, and the racing has been second to none, the greatest we've seen. Now, we've covered a myriad of disciplines on TRTN. Never once have we been more left agog with GT3 races. But it is a case that there just won't be a market for ACC anymore when LMU comes out. So in the near future, absolutely, we will be covering it. And moreover, to expand out on that point, we are looking at some point, now I can't say for certain, I think giving any kind of indication as to a proper date as to when this can happen is just setting us up for a failure. But we are planning, hopefully by about next year, to be covering something relating to iRacing. I think that's the event horizon for a lot of sim races, for a lot of communities, for a lot of servers, and for ourselves as broadcasters, is working up the ladder to the big house of iRacing. You know, I think that's where everyone wants to be as a commentator. It's where everyone flocks to. It's the very pinnacle of sim racing. We will eventually be at that point, but where we're at right now isn't too bad either. To be fair, there are plenty of series I would like to cover. It's just a case where there has either not been a market for it or the game is gone, basically. It's that the infrastructure's dead. So one example, Project Cars 2. I kind of wish that I got into the commentary stuff a lot longer ago. Otherwise, you know, we would have been in that time where Project Cars 2 was still at its peak, and we would have been able to cover that. And there were leagues doing stuff on there. In fact, a lot of the people that we spoke to in our times as league makers ourselves, we met, that they spoke quite fondly of their times working back in Project Cars 2. We still, yeah, there are still people that play Project Cars 2, but it's a case where a lot of the online infrastructure has just kind of disappeared. It's all been delicensed, or it's been taken off the console stores, and it's just kind of out of the way to find now. And there aren't really leagues with enough manpower, enough people, enough interest to keep that sort of thing running. And there's also just games at the moment where either they're not out, or they're in early access, or there just, again, isn't a market for it. There was one idea floated, and I don't mind talking too much about this because it was really only ever a bit of a pipe dream, but there was this one idea discussed with a few members in NLRL of running a sort of impromptu Baja rally via BeamNG Drive. Because as it turns out, BeamNG Drive is actually a very fun game for off-road racing, and we were thinking of doing like a proper Baja staged rally and having that be put up on the internet, or working alongside was it some rallycross content via BeamNG. But ultimately that just never came to fruition, just because there isn't really a market for it. You can't gain sponsorship for something like that, and with our calendar being busy enough and with not enough people really that interested, it's just something that never came to fruition. In the ideal world, we would cover as many series as we could, but ultimately it's kind of wherever the attention is closest. So at the very end of GT3 qualifying, we were just on board with Daniel Durga. Tyler Vermack is also out on track at the moment for what appears to be pole position on his return back to McLaren here in the Solo Multiclass Endurance Championship. He calls it quits there at the end of GT3 qualifying, as we are but moments away from the start of GT4's qualifying then. So that's the end of GT3 qualifying. And immediately we head into the last 20 minutes of the session today. So the GT4s are out on the field. Daniel Durga does find himself a little bit lost here on his last lap. I imagine after this one, it'll be straight into the pits. A bit of a cut there over the Vidal chicane, though, for the Slovakian driver. He's into the pits immediately. So at least we've been able to cover the fundamentals this time around, that the opening 20 minutes is for the GT3s, the last 20 minutes is for the GT4s. So leading us out of the gates then is Lebay and Jolicoeur, the number 119 and the number 69 Chevrolets of the Malois racing team. Right behind them then is Miguel Rascon on his debut here in the Solo Multiclass Endurance Championship. The Spanish driver will compete in the number 37 Mercedes AMG GT4. Also out on the field at the moment as well, making his way down into the same section of the track, down at turn 5 and 6 is Carl Martel and number 99. Last time he was on our screens here, he took home a podium finish on the last corner in Alton Park, race 2 of round 2 of the Competizione Performance League GT4 Pro-Am Cup America Series. We can also see on the track at the moment, out through turn 4 we go, is Norbert Horvath. A name that we last heard here on TRTN all the way back in the time of the TRR ACC Sprint Series. So a long, long time ago, as a matter of fact. But Horvath joins us then in the Ginetta, and he makes his way into the top 10 on the GT4 standings in said titular Ginetta. Also out on the track now as we speak, on his way down towards turns 5 and 6 is Alex Albert, the last of the Malois Racing Chevrolets. So on board with Christian Lebay as we go back into the discussion of GT4 balance of performance. Chevrolet only losing 5 kilos. If Aston Martin would have shown out for this round, they would have seen cars with 13 kilos shaved off of them. Mercedes losing 4 kilos, BMW losing 1, McLaren gaining 3, Ginetta gaining 9, and Porsche gaining 20. So the most poignant center of attention here is the discussion of Mercedes, Chevrolet, and Ginetta. Mercedes and Chevy losing weight, Ginetta gaining weight, but this is somewhat negligible when you consider that the Ginetta is already one of the lightest cars for curb weight alone. So Lebay the first on to our flying laps for the GT4 qualifying session. We have 6 cars in the GT4 paddock and 5, actually no, 6, so it is 12 apiece there, I believe, unless I can't count. Yes, I think that is the case. No, hang on a second. So 1, 2, 3, 5. Okay, I cannot count. It's been a long week. We covered around very early in the morning on Wednesday this week. It would have been Tuesday evening for our clients over on the Competizione Performance League. We've just wrapped production as well for the opening round of the HCCL GT4 Challenge we covered earlier on in Monza. And we're on our third event here of 4 this week here at the Solo Multiclass Endurance Championship, the 4th of which will be tomorrow evening at the Sunday League. Joining us once again from the Nurburgring. Just picking back up on something that Byron Forrest said in chat as well. Project Motor Racing will be epic. I'd say, yeah, there's a lot of promise to it now. I think it definitely brings the same vibe as the original Project Cars did back in the day. There's a lot of hope going into that. I think the campaign looks very interesting because they're gearing it as this more hardcore, almost survival-esque campaign mode for sim racing. Well, it's for obviously for racing simulation, but it's sort of really driving home the point that it's going to be very tough to progress, but the progression will feel earned and deserved. So it really does illustrate the costs of motorsport, I think, over everything. That's the idea, is that you'll be running your own racing team effectively. And for the car selection, honestly, I am really taken aback by the car selection as well. We've just seen Christian Lebay there, fastest of the GT4s. Across the line he goes. Then to the line is Timothy Jolicoeur. Takes the second fastest time. Then right behind him there was Miguel Rascon, but doesn't set a time, so invalidated after his first flying lap. Karl Martel next to the line. Out of turn 16 we go at the Coca-Cola curve. On our way to the line then, the number 99 to potentially pick up provisional third fastest, also invalidated. So a bit of a confusing spectacle then. We see Norbert Horvath through the Vidal chicane. Now through Coca-Cola curve. 5 minutes then into the GT4 qualifying already, and only 2 times on the chart, despite 6 cars out on the track. So next to the line comes Norbert Horvath, and there, your third time on the charts. Norbert Horvath provisionally division third, as we wait to see the arrival here of Alex Albert in the number 36. On his way to the line we go. Doesn't set a time on this lap just gone, so very confusing stuff then. As we check back in, the number 99 of Karl Martel is up 0.8 of a second on his lap here. Let's see if we can catch on board with the car currently leading GT4's qualifying. We're back on board with Christian Lebay. You can see the telemetry there going haywire to show just how close he is to an improvement over his fastest time. He's up 1/10 there through bit. Into Warsteiner could be up to 0.2 of a second. Drops back just a little bit to under 1/10 of a second on his way to Hatzenbeck. We'll stay on board here with the Chevrolet of Christian Lebay out through Hatzenbeck at turn 12. Over to the Vidal chicane we go. And, oh, does that appear to be a disconnect I think we saw there? That was a bit of a confusing one indeed. So we're on board with Timothy Jolicoeur for the time being until Lebay reconnects, has now inherited pole position in the GT4 category. Down towards Coca-Cola curve we go. I'm sure the 119 will be trying to reconnect into the lobby here in a moment's time. We did see the sort of flickers here and there of a disconnect on the horizon for him. And now, so we're told by race control, because of the outstanding circumstances of today, both of the staff members normally responsible for the management of this server are actually away today. It's been ran automatically, effectively. So it's an automated system that's been getting this up and running. So that, sadly, if we do go into a disconnect, this round is likely to be cancelled indefinitely. And that's a big problem for us, considering our sponsors paid for this round, and we will have to refund them in some capacity. And we want to make sure every round that our sponsors at Malois Transport have paid for are out there. But ultimately, it's fate at this point. It is up to the gods to figure out as to whether or not we have a serious problem with G-Portal today. I'm not going to comment about G-Portal because I get the feeling that Commentator's Curse is a very real thing, and those of you who tuned in earlier today to the HCCL race saw that Commentator's Curse was very nearly a real thing, and we have several accounts to prove that Commentator's Curse is a real thing, so I'm just not going to speak about it. How's about that? I'm just not going to talk about it, because then it's my fault if we disconnect today. So we're on board with Miguel Rascon, the new driver then in the GT4 paddock. On his way out the Schumacher S's. He's up half a second on his last time there, an invalidated run of a 2:08.170. We'll see what Rascon can do on his way out through bit into Warsteiner. It's looking exceptionally fast here for the Spaniard in the number 37 Mercedes. So back onto the subject that I had before, with that Project Motor Racing, it is going to be very exciting to see where that goes, because the car list I mentioned briefly, it is really, really solid. I mean, you've got some proper old school endurance racing cars in there from the sort of GT1 and LMP 900 days. It is going to be very exciting to see what they do with that. And moreover, the car list just keeps expanding, so it's not all just classic machines. Most recently in the trailers, they showed a Gamescom, as we see now across the line, 4th fastest for Miguel Rascon in the 37. As we saw from the trailers that came out at Gamescom, they've added plenty new cars. Among them was the Aston Martin Valkyrie LMH. So it is very, very interesting to see where that goes. As the car list continues to expand, they've now picked up Porsche as well with the 963. So that makes, I believe at the moment, 3 LMDHs that they have licensing for, as well as the Lamborghini SC63 and the aforementioned Aston Martin Valkyrie. They've also got modern GT3s involved there as well. And looking further back through it, we've got GT1s, we've got older LMP 900s, we've got older sports cars. They are definitely aiming at the market of endurance racing. And while they're not trying to be Le Mans Ultimate, they are definitely trying to be a little bit more of a niche-centered version of Le Mans Ultimate. To be fair, it almost perfectly mirrors that of Project Cars, because remembering their car list, yes, it was varied, but it was a pretty strong emphasis on endurance race cars. Real troubles there for Miguel Rascon. He's now forced to the back of the top 5. Norbert Horvath, 3rd fastest for Ginetta here as we hit the halfway mark of GT4 qualifying. So while things have been a little bit quieter than usual here in the Solo Multiclass Endurance Championship, there has still been a great time to discuss present affairs in the world of sim racing and on this very grid as well, as we see Ginetta picking up the slack again for what is potentially another podium appearance for Norbert Horvath. We can see as well, okay, so we are not without present attendance from a Mr. Cas van Veltzen. So he missed out on the GT3 qualifying window, meaning that Van Veltzen will have to start behind the GT4s. That's going to be an interesting one. Cas van Veltzen as well was up there in the heights of the GT3 championship standing, so it would have been a bit of an empty grid to not see him up there to fight with Tyler Vermaak. But these two, as you can see, will start on opposite poles of this grid. Vermaak up in the lead of the GT3 category. Van Veltzen has got a monstrous task ahead of him here. Not only does he have to clear a field of GT4s, he's then got to clear upwards of 4 more GT3s before he's within a shout of a front row finish. So with 2 hours of racing here at the Nurburgring, things could pick up massively on that discussion. So that is definitely an interesting addition here right at the very end of qualifying. We really thought we were only going to see about 11 cars today. It is a treat then to be given equal parts here, 6 GT4s and 6 GT3s. We're back on then with Norbert Horvath, who we discussed earlier, right now is on a podium start on the front of that second row by only a 10th and 7 hundredths of a second. Actually a 10th and 60, I'm looking at it here, 68 thousandths of a second. So that is remarkably close. So a 10th and about 168 thousandths of a second between Horvath and Jolicoeur for that second row. Then in regards to where he is with Martel, just under half a second there to a front row start. That has been totally locked out by Chevrolet. No one's getting near Christian Lebey's time feasibly in the GT4 category right now. He's looking for back-to-back solid results in GT4. Of course, back in HCCL earlier today, he sadly missed out on his opportunity to take another win under his belt. Obviously, having won Season 2 of the HCCL Multiclass Championship in the very same number 119 Chevrolet, he narrowly missed out on a win in the inaugural round of Season 3 of the GT4 Challenge. So he'll be looking to pick up the pieces here and pick up another win here in the Solo Multiclass Endurance Championship in the 119. And then he'll be joining us again tomorrow in the 119 Aston Martin as we head back to this very same circuit for the Sunday League tomorrow at 6:30. In regards to news with HCCL, we don't have full confirmation of anything, but what I can tell you and what I'm of liberty to discuss with you, the stream audience, is that the interest for more rounds of the HCCL are definitely on the table. The interest for more rounds of that are on the table. We are in discussion with the head staff over at HCCL to look into that further. So Cas van Veltzen letting us know in the Twitch chat that he was late to this qualifying session because he was doing the qualifying for a 24-hour race in Spa next week. So good on him there. Would be curious to know what that event is. And we would like to pick up more work with charity. I mean, one thing that we did used to do for charity with just before we were officially called TRTN was we worked alongside the folks at XSC for their 9 hours charity race at Watkins Glen. I think it was for men's mental health charities. And that was a great time. And I really do miss the longer form charity rounds. We've not really received any messages or calls or anything of that nature for those longer form bits of content, but we would love to do that. We would really like to do that, depending on, of course, if it can fit into the calendar. I suppose this is bringing up a subject from earlier on into sort of what series would we end up covering. It was originally asked, would it be Le Mans Ultimate? Another series I want to throw into the ring as well. Now, we announced this not long ago that the iRacing devs were working on an IndyCar game to go alongside their NASCAR game in 2026. Both of them, I think since I started doing commentary work, I've wanted to do something in the capacity of a NASCAR race. They have just, you watch it on the TV, you watch it on Fox or ESPN or what have you, they're always having fun with that. It's never a dull day in the NASCAR paddock. That seems like something I really want to try out. You see, extending the margin as well, up an extra 1/10 of a second there, Christian Lebay, dominating the field here for another pole position. 5 minutes left to go in qualifying today. Right now, for the GT4s, it's Lebay from Martel, from Rascon, from Horvath, from Jolicoeur, Albert, and that rounds out the GT4s. Starting behind them after a late entry is the GT3 of Cas van Veltzen. In fact, we had, this is back on a discussion of charity events. We had an idea for a charity event at NLRL. It hasn't yet ended up happening, but what we were thinking of doing was going to be probably a 12 to 24 hour race. But the caveat is we have what we call a kill car. And when you donate a certain, so we have like a donation tracker for charity. When you donate a certain amount of money to a charity, so say like £5, £10, we dispatch the kill car to take one of the drivers out. Ultimately, you can see why this decision never ended up happening. But we found it such a bizarre and entertaining concept that one of these days the kill car will eventually be used. You never know when it will be. You never know when. It may not even be a charity round. It could be something completely different, but we want to explore that concept at some point just because it was so novel that we don't want to let go of it out of more out of bitter spite of the fact that we'll never find a practical application for it. So 3 minutes left to go in GT4 qualifying. Out on the track at the moment, Alex Albert and Christian Lebay. Lebay having crossed the line there. I don't actually know if to an improvement. Right now, still 9.8 seconds off from the fastest time of the session, but by and large, leading the qualifying for GT4. Look at the gap there between himself and Karl Martel. It's a Chevrolet front row lockout then with new signing Miguel Rascon, division third alongside Norbert Horvath in the only Ginetta of the championship. Alex Albert to the line, doesn't overtake Timothy Jolicoeur on that last lap just gone, but with 2 more laps feasibly in the tank here before the end of qualifying today, Albert still yet has a chance here, has to make about a second thereabouts, just under a second, if he means to catch the time of Timothy Jolicoeur and start up on division 5th. So we're still on board with Alex Albert. As a matter of fact, we'll stay with the Oh, as we see here, though, Miguel Rascon is coming back out. So he may be third at the moment, but he is looking for ambitions of a front row start here. Next in his iron sights is going to be Karl Martel. And we've seen this dynamic start to develop at the Malois racing team. Now, we can't exactly validate how close our theories are of the matter, but we saw not long ago, taken under the wing by both Sunday League champions, including Christian Lebay, the head of the Malois racing team, was Tyler Vermaak as the sort of latest disciple of the team, in which he learned a lot in that time and has now grown into the driver we know him for today. I'm seeing the beginnings of this with Karl Martel. I think he's possibly been taken under the wing here by Lebay, and we see more often than not, both across here, the activities on the Solo Multiclass Endurance Championship and also over on the Competizione Performance League GT4 Pro-Am Cup America Series, the Martel's performance is getting closer and closer to Lebay's. Now, I wonder, of course, they're at the same team, how much data are these two sharing with one another here? Because I get the feeling Martel is Lebay's next disciple, his next prodigal son, as it were. And the next sort of rising, developing talent here from Canada. And that number 99 is exceptionally strong in this championship and is fantastic over on CPL. So there is a lot to consider for Karl Martel in the near future. But let's see what this new driver on the block can do. Is only 2/10 away from Martel is Miguel Rascon. And with only a minute left to go, this will be his last lap of qualifying today. So one more in the tank here for the number 37 Mercedes. Let's see what Miguel Rascon can do then. We'll get on board with the Spaniard here for the last lap of qualifying today. So we pull up the telemetry to our top left. Hopefully it resyncs in time for this flying lap. So across the line we go to start things off, already to an improvement by a couple hundredths of a second. So better momentum out of the Coca-Cola curve for Miguel Rascon on his way down towards turn 1 as we begin the final flying lap of today's quali. Into the Yokohama S we go. A big dive there, a massive dip over the rear bumper, a bit of a tank slapper in towards turn 2 as we start the Mercedes arena. We can see, though, somehow that's the end of qualifying. So I believe, yes, was an invalidation for Miguel Rascon, if I'm not mistaken here. Despite the fact that it has seemingly already started for his last flying lap. So I'm told that is the end of qualifying. But we'll stay with Miguel Rascon as there. That all but confirms it. No more flying laps then for Rascon. His chances then of higher ambition for a front row start quelled before the end of that lap just gone. He'll start Division 3rd. More onto the discussion of the division standings in a moment's time then. What a series of times, though, we have seen today. Vermaak on pole for GT3, Lebay on pole for GT4. That's going to make 2 sets of grids here. Very, very interesting as well. We also see that a surprise disconnect. That was from Mateusz Blaszka in the number 4. So he'll actually start with Cas van Velzen at the back of the grid today. So that has gone massively sour for the number 4 of Blaszka. He was up in that top 5, I believe, up there with Pol and Durga. But now Blaszka starts at the back of the field. He'll be starting with the number 420 in the center of your screens at the moment. That's Cas van Velzen with Ford, number 420. We've seen that Van Velzen himself is race-winning material. He was able to pick up back in the Sunday League and was also the centre of that controversial decision in Valencia that took away one of his race wins that season and gave it over to Axel Cassier, becoming Belgium's first ever driver to win in the Sunday League after 3 seasons in running. So let's see how things pan out then here in the Nurburgring. Just having a gander as well at the end of quali, how close things were getting. Take a look there at the gap between Martel and Rascon. If Rascon really did have one more lap in the runnings there, he definitely could have had a chance to strike at Karl Martel's time and start from the front row with Mercedes. No, but Horvath, in equal respect, would have had that opportunity as well. And you can even see as well with Jolicoeur, he would have had that chance on Horvath. But it just seems today, in the searingly hot conditions over the course of quali, it's just been too difficult for quite a few of these cars to have perfect temperature. A lot of these tyres have been overheating, giving the drivers feasibly only 1 or 2 laps in great conditions before the tyres cook out. Now, how is that going to reflect in the race here? Well, with the Solo Multiclass Endurance Championship having 2 mandatory pit stops, it is going to allow for a lot more consideration to go onto those tyres for the first time. So having a look at the grid, you actually see they start quite a ways up from the official start. That's actually the finish line down there, if I'm not mistaken. The start line is miles up from where we currently have our cameras positioned. But discussing the grid then after a very hectic qualifying session, starting things off, Tyler Vermack on pole position, an all McLaren front row in GT3 as Ben Cheeseman lines up on the front row in second place. Anton Pole in third, with Daniel Durga in fourth, and Radoslav Kowalczyk rounds out a top 5 after their sudden departure by do forgive me just one moment there. By Tadeusz Blaszka. That's my mistake there. So the sudden departure by Blaszka has now drawn things down to only 6 cars in GT3. Was going to be 7 had it not been for that disconnect. Then down into the GT4 field, Christian Lebay starts on pole position for another manufacturer lockout, this time for Chevrolet in GT4 as Carl Martel lines up on the front row for the GT4 field. Miguel Rascon on his debut here in the Solo Multiclass Endurance Championship starts in provisional 3rd for the GT4 class, and alongside on that second row is Norbert Horvath in the number 987 Ginetta. Then Jolicoeur and Albert behind them on the row, comprised again of entirely Chevrolets, and then at the back of the field in its entirety on a very oddball start to today's race is Cas van Velzen, who is really going to be out of his depth here, far, far away from the rest of his GT3s. Will start behind the GT4s. We'll have to navigate them fairly in order to get back up with the Premier class. Now, place your bets as to how long precisely that's going to take for Cas van Velzen. Bear in mind, he's no slouch. On his day, he can compete with Vermack and with even other drivers in the Sunday League like Melvin Milliston, for example. He's one of the heavy hitters for qualifying performance. You can see just how bizarre that rear row, that rearward row is looking there of Albert and Van Velzen. That is terrifying, but a great showcase, really, to show you the size difference between the largest of our GT4s and among the largest of our GT3s. They are still quite hefty up against the titular GT4s. 30 seconds then means that the drivers have been given the commands to start their engines here in this fantastic sweeping shot of the grid. It will be aloof in a moment's time with the sound of several thundering V8s there from Chevrolet. 6.2 litres to Ford's 5.4 and the Mustang. You also see Mercedes there, the M178 4-litre twin-turbo V8. As a matter of fact, some of the only cars not to be running 8 cylinders today. You can see there the Ginetta G55, a 3.7-litre Ford Cyclone V6. The Porsche here of Radoslav Kowalczyk running a flat 6 engine. Let's see if we can catch on board then with Tyler Vermack, who also takes us away in a V8-powered McLaren for an all-V8 front row. The only other 2 cars then, besides Kowalczyk in the GT3 field, not to be running V8 engines. Anton Pole with the Nissan VR36 DETT twin-turbo V6 engine. And Daniel Durga with Ferrari's same V6 engine that's used in the 499p hypercar, at least the very same block of a V6 engine there. And that is one of their latest developments from Ferrari. A very divisive choice by Ferrari to develop a midship supercar with a V6 engine. I mean, the very sound of that is egregious. But the 296 has proven to be one of the best investments Ferrari has ever made in terms of more radical design shifts. Normally, they would have stuck with the more heavy-hitting V8s from the times gone by, the 488 and the 458. But their investment to go down to 6 cylinders has actually paid off massively. And I think it's this greater move from the world of endurance racing down to smaller, more fuel-efficient engines. And that V6 is only the start of it. I think the V8, I could never see the V8 being phased out entirely from motorsport. They will always find a way to make this engine work. It's worked for 100 years. It'll work for 100 years more. I can't help but notice, though, the rise of the 6-cylinder. So, on the formation lap right now with Tyler Vermack, our pole sitter for GT3. Looking further down the field, you can see there's Ben Cheeseman and Anton Pole. And looking down into the GT4 field here, we've got the looks from Timothy Jolicoeur and Alex Albert towards the back of the GT4 field. Then up the front of the GT4 field is another 2 Chevrolets here, Christian Lebay and Carl Martel. Right behind them, Miguel Rascon. Heading up the Schumacher S's. Now, There are great fears here for Tyler Vermack on what is going to be an experimental drive with McLaren. Now, he's no stranger to the 720S. Keen-eyed viewers will remember he did drive a McLaren back in Season 2 of the Sunday League, but only for a very short amount of time compared to his longest stint of that season, which was with Ford Performance in the Mustang. So there is a lot riding on the line here for Vermack. Vital data to be gathered for further progress down the line in endurance racing. So what better place to test that philosophy than the next 2 hours of racing on the charts here in the Solo Multiclass Endurance Championship. Heading out of Warsteiner. And back onto that discussion very quickly as to how long do we think it's going to take for Cas van Velzen to clear the GT4s. I'm giving it no more than 2 laps, I reckon, for Van Velzen to clear the GT4s. He moves like a force of nature, really, in that Mustang. So we're on with Vermack. So rolling out to the Coca-Cola curve for the second race today then here on TRTN after our coverage of the HCCL GT4 Challenge. You join us now for the start of round 6 of the NLRL Solo Multiclass Endurance Championship powered by Malois Transport. On our way to the line then for the first of 2 races today here at the Nurburgring. A drive-through penalty befalls Ben Cheeseman immediately as we're green and racing here in the Nurburgring. A great getaway by the pair of the McLarens on the front row. Cheeseman, though, struck with that drive-through penalty, so his race is massively about to shift. As he's around the outside down at turn 1, Tyler Vermack covers him off for the lead of the race already. So Cheeseman has found himself chock full of trouble for the race start. Anton Pohl maintains third, but runs super wide, allowing Daniel Durga up to third place on debut then. He falls back in behind it. Oh my word, that is Cas van Velzen. So before I've even had the opportunity to blink, we're not 4 corners in, and Van Velzen's with. Oh my goodness, he descended upon him like a shadow there. That's terrifying from the 420. Absolutely horrifying. I thought it would have took at least 2 laps for the Mustang to clear the gap. He's cleared it in 5 corners. Good Lord. Now we can see here from the back of the GT3s into the front of our GT4s is Christian Lebay and Karl Martel. Miguel Rascon only half a second away from Martel as we make our way down towards turn 7 for the first time on racing form. Here's Karl Martel, number 99. Behind him, the number 37 Mercedes of Miguel Rascon. We'll stay with these two for a moment here as we quickly check back in on the GT3s. Up through the Schumacher S as we go then. Martel from Rascon. We also see that Miguel Rascon's got present company chasing him down for the very position he covets there of GT4. That's third in class. Right now, Timothy Jolicoeur's looking to have a stab for a podium here in GT4 right off the bat here in the opening couple of minutes. We quickly see here with Daniel Durga under siege from Cas van Velzen. Must I say that is one of the greatest starts in GT racing history that we've seen from Cas van Velzen. He started at the back of this field, has cleared the gap up to what looks to be a podium in next to 0 time. That technically no laps have been recorded yet. We have joining us in chat at the moment is K1 Jupiter. You join us just for the very start of round 6. And in that time, Ben Cheeseman starts to have drive-through penalty. Cas van Velzen started behind the GT4 field after having missed qualifying and has already closed the gap to Daniel Durga in third. Yes, the server did launch properly. We are checking back in, though, because we had a momentary yellow flag. It was for the 99 of Karl Martel. So trouble befell him down at the Vidal chicane and into the Coca-Cola curve. He was riding on the expectation of another potential podium today. As a matter of fact, started on that front row. And it has all come asunder for him here. Miguel Rascon now second. Lebay leads GT4. Jolicoeur in hot pursuit here. Norbert Horvath's up to 4th. Still watching here that fight for third. We'll stay on board with the defending point of view here of Daniel Durga. On debut as well, mind you, fighting for third against Cas van Velzen. The Mustang very nearly picking up a bit of gravel there on the exit of turn 7. Now up through the Schumacher S's. The question therein remains, with only 8 tenths in difference between the pair of the McLarens on the front row. You can see just up the road from Durga's perspective right now. What is Ben Cheeseman planning to do? You see right over the rear quarter. That is... I don't quite know how to describe it, so to help aid my point here, it's just going to be the singular sound effect that, you know, you think about this, you're Daniel Durga, okay, you know, I'm enjoying my time here on the GT3 field. I sure do hope there's no Ford Mustangs lurking around at any point during today's race. And that's kind of how it's been for the opening 2 laps here for Daniel Durga, because that was that scared me more than it scared him on that opening lap. We thought, and then we had the predictions right there, that it would have taken at least 2 laps for Cas van Velzen to catch, and it took him 5 corners. How do you even describe that? Out through turn 1, around the outside, then to the inside at turn 2. Daniel Durga vulnerable here to an attack from Cas van Velzen. Out through turn 3, it's contact between the pair of them, forced out wide. Durga down to 4th, van Velzen to 3rd. Provisionally up to 2nd with that drive-through penalty for Ben Cheeseman. Talk about closing a gap there. That is a drive unlike anything I think I've ever seen. We've seen drivers deliberately kneecap their own times after they've won championships, yes, but Van Velzen joined after doing qualifying for a charity race that he's doing next week, joins into this with no prior practice, immediately 3rd. From the back of the field to 3rd. How do you even explain that? Unbelievable. So, looking down into our GT4s, let's get a gander here, just quickly glancing past our GT3s. Taking a look then, Christian Lebay has only found 2 seconds worth of a gap here. Now, uncharacteristic of the Camaro, maybe he has perhaps met his match here from Miguel Rascon, as he is only just 2 seconds away. Normally, we expect to see a bit larger of a gap come out of the court of Christian Lebay, but bear in mind, he's not had a lot of time to practice the Nurburgring here, but he will be getting at least some semblance of an understanding as to what to expect on this track for tomorrow when he gets back behind the wheel of his trusty Aston Martin V12 Vantage in the Sunday League tomorrow at 6:30, where we come to you again from the Nurburgring GP circuit. Riding off the back of another podium finish today, which he managed to clamber to after quite a lengthy fight with the number 55 Aston Martin of Asahi Ota over on HCCL. Lebay is fired up and looking for a victory today. And if Miguel Rascon is able to close the gap, this is not going to be an easily won fight for the Spaniard. Lebay is not looking to give any quarter here to his contemporaries in GT4. No at all. You can see further behind the fight going on for Division 4th right now between Alex Albert and Norbert Horvath. Ginetta versus Chevrolet, David and Goliath, if you could put it that way. Right now, we're on board with the Chevrolet here of Albert, chasing down that Ginetta. Now, you have plenty of opportunity here in the opening straight. The Ginetta just about tops out round about here. So this is the attacking spot for Albert. You can see hesitation strikes the 36. So Albert doesn't consider his odds for a move just yet, buying his time, waiting to see what the mistakes are from Norbert Horvath, and then when can he strike. So he is playing things a little tactically here in the opening 10 minutes. Bear in mind, of course, an hour and 53 before the checkered flag, so plenty of time to play for here down in the GT4 category. We'll catch up with these two later on. We see here with Miguel Rascon, 2nd in GT4 on debut. Nothing to scoff at there. He had a very, very strong start, much to the chagrin of the 99 of Carl Martel, who's now down at the back of GT4 and a ways down, mind you. Can see here, Durga is still right with Cas van Velzen, so I am surprised to see that that battle has reignited, this time in the opposite direction. So let's get on board with Daniel Durga. Was previously defending for 3rd. Now this is for 2nd after that pit stop run by Ben Cheeseman. He's now at the back of the GT3 field behind Radoslav Kowalczyk in the number 991 Porsche. Oh my word, that was Cas van Velzen. What happened to him there? I believe that's pedal case failure. Now, we saw this earlier on for Elias Svennington in HCCL. Yeah, you can see he's just gone straight. No, that's steering wheel failure then. Oh my goodness, that was brutal. Well, that thoroughly disproves any fight for 2nd going on at the moment. That is disastrous for Cas van Velzen. A rather bizarre mystery. Yeah, you can see he's just completely stuck in place. His throttle's down. That's disaster. I think that's a total hardware failure for Cas van Velzen. So after one of the greatest starts we've ever seen, hardware has caught up to Cas van Veltzen. There's no other explanation as to what's just happened there. He went, I mean, let's get a look at that back on the replay here. This isn't attempting to rub the salt in the wounds. We're just simply trying to pick apart what the hell happened here. We were watching from Daniel Durga's perspective there. He just runs off. His throttle was completely pinned in there. There was no attempt to brake. I think it was full hardware failure. I'm not a genius when it comes to hardware, so anyone in chat, do feel free to pitch in on that. But that, to me, looked like some kind of critical failure on his rig. The throttle completely pinned, and the wheel just completely failed. And well, we've got Cass in chat at the moment, so we'll try and find out the answers. Cass, what happened? Yeah, the throttle stuck. So that's the word then from Cas van Veltzen. The throttle failed on his car. So that was a pedal case failure. The throttle was stuck. And that is one of the most bizarre DNFs we've ever seen. Minutes in there, and fate has shifted twice for Cas van Veltzen. Started at the back of the field, was up in the fight for a podium, then was second in today's race before a total pedal case failure. Well, nothing else properly describes what on earth just happened. We're on board here with Tyler Vermaak, right now presently leading this race for the GT3s. If we want to take a look as to who's leading GT4, we have a look down the paddock here to the 119 of Christian Lebay. He's now opened that gap up massively away from Miguel Rascon, who himself has run into a spot of bother, as I believe, having a look quickly here, very nearly an incident between Horvath and Albert. We want to try and catch what happened to Miguel Rascon. I think it might have been a disconnect. I'm not 100% sure. We'll have to chase up what exactly has gone on for the Mercedes. The Spaniard had a very strong start to today's race and has seemingly vanished off of the face of the earth here. Having a look on that paddock, yes. So we're down to 5 cars. It was a disconnect for Miguel Rascon. Having a look around the field here. Nearest battle on track looks to be between Anton Pol and Daniel Durga. The Nissan and the Ferrari only about 1.7 seconds from one another. This would be for second in GT3. Looking down into GT4, we saw incredibly close stuff for a time there between Alex Albert and Norbert Horvath. This was for Division 3rd now, much to the chagrin of Miguel Rascon. So let's stay on board with Alex Albert here as he looks to potentially fight for a division podium. Fundamentally, of course, a fight for 8th position, but this is Division 3rd we're talking about for the GT4s, sorry. See, this is the closest it's been in quite some time now. The last incident they had is actually not too far from where we are at the moment. As we exit Warstein, it was down at the Vidal chicane last lap between Albert and Horvath. Very, very nearly ended up as an incident involving both cars. I think it was just a case where Albert came into that chicane just a little too hot. We'll see if that's history repeating itself here. As later on the brakes goes Norbert Horvath in the Ginetta. He's barreling down, very nearly taken out there. As nearly into the wall goes Alex Albert. So this is very, very hair-raising stuff between these two. Maybe a little bit of aero wash potentially for the Chevrolet down through the Vidal chicane. He's been very lucky to keep that out of the wall. Very, very lucky indeed. I mean, it diminishes that fight for 3rd for the time being as Norbert Horvath once again given breathing space here as Alex Albert lost 2 seconds over the course of that last lap just gone. Back on the discussion of the nearest fight up the order. It's for 2nd place in GT3 between Daniel Durga and Anton Pol. That currently sits at just under 2 seconds between the pair of them. That really kind of summarizes it right now. A much smaller grid here in the Solo Multiclass Endurance Championship. sadly, we are still without Hayden Prodger on the grid as well. I think he's still out citing injuries. And I remember distinctly he was quite upset about the fact that the one time that he was injured was the one time we had mixed conditions. That was Zandvoort in round 5, just gone. We still see here with Anton Pol and Daniel Durga. It is still quite captivating here to see the sort of old and new gen, as it were, of V6 go head-to-head. Ferrari's new gen V6, of course, the same underpinnings of their multiple-time, 3 in a row, as a matter of fact, Le Mans winning 499p. And then we see the legendary Nissan GTR. Sadly, we announced only a few days ago, as a matter of fact, that Nissan has rolled out the last of these cars. It's the last we'll ever see for the time being of the mighty Nissan GTR, the supercar killer, as it was back in 2007. And the final generation of the... I mean, technically it isn't a Nissan Skyline. It was just called the Nissan GTR. But everyone knows it heralds from the legendary Skyline GTR. So, after a quarter of an hour into today's race, things have shifted massively. The grid has gotten smaller, sadly, and we've lost a few drivers. We lost Miguel Rascon in GT4, and we lost Cas van Veltzen in GT3. After a lightning start, by the way. We discussed this not long ago here on TRTM, was that technically ACC is still due a content update. Now, the devs are more likely than not never to release this. The priority over at Kuno Simulazione is very clearly now on AC Evo. The online multiplayer is being rolled out, and we've already seen lobbies come up and racing start to get underway over there. I'm sure plenty of Twitch streamers have been able to tell you the same, that things are getting underway with AC Evo, but technically for a long time it was stated that another content patch was coming to ACC, and now speculations were aloof as to where we would be going. Some people saying that we were going to Jeddah, to Sebring. You know, there were plenty of theories as to what kind of cars we could get. I think a lot of signs pointed in the direction that we were going to get perhaps either a BMW Evo or a Aston Martin Evo, or we were going to be getting the Corvette. And I think I'm one of the only people of the opinion that we should probably have more GT4s. I don't know what it is. I think it's been maybe my familiarity now, having covered more GT4 racing in the last month and a half. If we actually get a look down into the GT4s to see here, Timothy Jolicoeur now up to second. Norbert Horvath in third. Alex Albert still in pursuit here. We'll stay on board with Jolicoeur as we discuss the GT4s. Now, we know iRacing has added the... what would have been, I'd say, the perfect rival car for this, and that's the new 7th generation Ford Mustang GT4, and that looks to be an absolute... Well, they are adding it. They're in the process of adding it in their latest development patch. And I think, sadly, I think we've been maybe a bit robbed of the full package here on ACC, and I think it just comes from the nature that this is licensed content. When you look at iRacing, yes, you could make the argument that it's at least semi-licensed on multiple different series, but it's not the official game of blank. You know, it's not in the same sense that ACC is the official game of the SRO GT World Challenge series. And I think that maybe did stifle some of the creative liberties of Kuno Simulazione and 505 games. I think it definitely did stifle them in terms of being able to add more stuff just for the sake of adding it. A lot of it had to be under the auspice of following either the same theme or following other SRO series. That's the same kind of deal that got us into Continental. It's the same kind of thing that got us into GT4s, sorry, and GT2s. And very rarely do we end up with something that gains a lot of traction. You're not seeing a lot of leagues using the Ferrari Challengers. We're not seeing a lot of leagues using the Super Trofeos. We're not seeing a lot of leagues using the M2s. people want more GT3s, people want more GT4s. I mean, I think only one league ever on this side of console has ran a GT2 championship for more than a season. Down in that GT4 category. Now, I think we explained a few times as to what exactly could have been, what could have been added. Now, obviously the Mustang, then the facelift Aston, and then the Lotus Emira, the McLaren Artura, the Toyota GR Supra. All of these names pop up on that list. It's so infuriating to watch a GT4 race with the GR Supra in it and see on the bumper an Assetto Corsa Competizione logo. Yes, we see K1 Jupiter in chat saying the Ferrari Challenge and the Super Trofeo drive... I can't repeat exactly what he said. Drive bad. We do see here, coming into the pits, that's Carl Martel. So into the first of his 2 mandated pit stops. So after 20 minutes there, strategy starting to creep in. We could see that follow suit in the next 10 minutes or so for the greater majority of the grid, taking that first 30 minutes into account. They're able to strategize for the next hour and a half. This is around that time between an hour and a half to the hour mark is when we'll see the first of our pit stop runs. Of course, they still do have to factor in another pit run. So usually an hour and a half to half an hour is pit stop 1 and pit stop 2 is in that range for our drivers today. You can see back onto the discussion now for a podium here. Norbert Horvath versus Alex Albert as the nearest fight on the grid at the moment. Running things massively out wide was Alex Albert. They actually got airtime, if you just saw there, out of turn... that's out of turn 5. So massively underpinned the brakes. And I'm pretty sure, yeah, did actually catch airtime. Yeah, that's all 4 wheels off the ground. Wow. Oh, my word. So letting Anton Pol get around him there. And let's actually get back onto that discussion, because right in front of him is that fight now closer than ever for second place between Pol and Durga. You can see giving the lights there to Norbert Horvath. He said, get out of my way. I've got a race here to try and win. You can see there now accidentally stuck in the middle of that fight for second. There's Norbert Horvath swiftly moving over to let through the Nissan GTR of Anton Pol. Down into the Vidal chicane we go. Then we're back on board in that fight for second. Now having caught up to Timothy Jolicoeur, looking to get around the number 69 Chevrolet down in GT4 here. Comes Daniel Durga up the inside, then at turn 2. Into turn 3, you can see all of this pushing through traffic is slowing him down, and it is playing such a heavy hand here into Anton Pol's performance for second here. Daniel Durga is going to have to move heaven and earth to keep himself up and ahead of the Nissan. Down into turn 5 we go. You can see that Anton Pol already looking to stick things up on the inside, very nearly running over at turn 5. Then into turn 6, it's side by side between the pair of them. This is incredibly ambitious stuff by Anton Pol. He is done waiting around here. Strategy is no longer a consideration for the number 486. Down into turn 7 we go. Was looking for the inside, gets covered off by Daniel Durga. So now we're on board with Pol as we head up to the Schumacher S's. Lifts off massively there. The battle of the V6s then, down into Bitt and Warsteiner. See a little bit of a drift over on the left-hand side. Was that just a very slight loss in focus for Daniel Durga? Much earlier on the brakes than Anton Pol. Oh, it's a big jolt there even. I was about to say shunt, and it said a big junt. What does that mean? No idea. Big jolt for Anton Pol out through the second part of the Please, just Speak proper English today, man. Vidal chicane. Oh goodness, it is weighing on me. It is really weighing on me today. And I've got the easy job. They have to drive. So down into the Mercedes Arena section. Now down 1.7 seconds. Anton Pol to Daniel Durga. That fight for second having died in the water for the time being. But with plenty of time left in today's race, there is still much to fight for here for the number 486. Meanwhile, taking a look up towards the front of today's race, let's get on board with Tyler Vermaak, leading the charge then for the first time back with McLaren. It's been a development drive today to gather vital data for the future ahead. And it has definitely been quite the rewarding day here for Vermaak. Out in the clear and narrow, away from the nearest car to him, which would have been Ben Cheeseman, who started alongside him for an all-McLaren front row. That drive-through penalty has done critical damage to the 114 today. We actually can catch on board with Cheeseman as he's just got up and ahead of Norbert Horvath there, lapping past the number 987, now on his way up toward Timothy Jolicoeur. Bear in mind, despite having to take that drive-through penalty, Ben Cheeseman still finds himself fourth in division and fourth overall, so he has definitely clawed this one back. So all due respect there, he has really been putting in the proper graft for today. He was down and out from the start with that drive-through penalty. That was just wrong place, wrong time. You could see the building of that after Coca-Cola curve on the formation lap, that he was just in the wrong place. And ultimately, that's cost him quite dearly. But with the times that he's pulling in, there's nothing to say that he can't catch Pol and Durga right now. And he could catch them when these two are right back on top of one another for that fight of second. Speaking of, it's only 1.7, 1.8 seconds there as we round Coca-Cola curve between the Nissan and the Ferrari. So keep that in the back pocket here. We could be seeing them potentially come into the first of their two pit stops in about 4.5 minutes time. But after that, they will still be back with one another. So that could be one of the major pressing fights of today. I mean, one driver that's not going opposed really for position right now, Christian Lebay. He's really been able to get the most out of that Chevrolet. And every single one of these drives is just development drive for someplace else as well. I mean, he takes silverware quite seriously here in the Solo Multiclass Endurance Championship as the leading sort of big boss, as it were, of the Malois racing team. He does take his presence here quite seriously. You can see that he has commanded a serious presence on the field. Looking back into those previous wins over the course of the season, he's taken 3 of the 5 rounds for his very own here in the GT4 category. So he has not come around here just to play about and be mates. He is looking for gold, and he is going to get it by the looks of it here. So he's on for his 4th career win, and same story here for his teammate at the Malois racing team, Tyler Vermaak, up at the lead of GT3 at the moment. A pair of them look to be going back-to-back for victories here from round 5 to 6. So that gap now between Pol and Durga, 1.1 seconds. Is now trying to get around Christian Lebay. As you can see, he gave him the indicators to let him know, pass me on this side. That's quite clever there by the 119. I think he's given the same signal there to Anton Pol. We make our way around turn 16. Lebay runs it out wide there. He's not really having to risk much in doing so. He's that far up the field that you can afford to do that with very little repercussion. Across the line, it was Pol faster by about 0.5 of a second there, I believe, to Daniel Durga. Before we do get back into this fight, as it is right upon us here, we would like to remind you of our sponsors over at Malois Transport. The Solo Multiclass Endurance Championship and its coverage wouldn't be possible to bring to you without their continued support of this series. If you or someone you know are located in Canada and are looking for a efficient and professional transportation brokerage service for your business, visit their website on www.malois-transport.ca. As mentioned, wouldn't be possible to bring you the coverage for this fantastic championship and all others in NLRL without their continued support. So half a second is the dividing factor between Daniel Durga and Anton Pol for control of second in GT3 here. They could be very, very close to an all-out brawl for second place in a moment's time. Up the Schumacher S as we go, an hour and 31 minutes. Now we are getting dangerously close here for the window of the first of our pit stops. We can see that Karl Martl has already taken his earlier on, and we are approaching that pivotal first pit stop window. Of course, 2 to serve over the course of this race. So watching over the rear view, you can see looming in the background through turn 12 we go at Hatzenbeck. There's Anton Pol, the bright green Nissan over the rear spoiler here of Daniel Durga. But very wide out of the Vidal chicane there. Getting a look at that back on the replays. It was quite far away at the time. There you can see running over the second part of the Vidal chicane. That was definitely trouble for Anton Pol. That's put him 4 seconds asunder there over the last lap just gone, away from Daniel Durga. Now making his way out past Karl Martl. An hour and 30 minutes though left to go here at the Nurburgring. Here's Radoslav Kowalczyk. Now, we saw him last round was towards the back of the field in GT3. It's the same story around this time, but he's managed to keep his head low and out of trouble. Is for another top 5 finish today, even though there's only 5 cars in the race. Was 6, briefly. It's not to scoff at his performance. He's still shown up, and we even saw last race that where we thought it would have been a DNF, he got back out there and got to the checkered flag. So you've really got to, take your hats off for this one. His determination to keep that car on the track and to get into the points and to finish every race that he starts is a level of commitment we'd really like to see more of. I mean, we obviously understand the DNF today from Van Veltzen. I don't think anyone's going to be arguing with that. I mean, the man did his best impression of a lawn dart at the far end of Coca-Cola curve there. That was a total mechanical failure. Nothing he could have done about that. So now into the hour and a half mark. Let's catch on board with the leading McLaren here. Now, not a lot to risk for Tyler Vermaak. He's got the pace definitely down to a T. So will he go in for a more conventional pit stop run? Not this time around, so it seems. The 835 stays out on this lap. So let's see what next car to the line here. We've got the number 12 and the number 486. So that's Daniel Durga and Anton Pol. Neither of them take considerations at runs into the pit lane. Does Ben Cheeseman think of his odds then from 4th place and makes his way out of the Vidal chicane? And yes, so the first of our GT3s to come into the pits then. The 114. Oh my goodness, against the wall there. That was Ben Cheeseman. That highlights some of the dangers here. The pit lane run here at the Nurburgring. You see making his way towards that wall. That was understeer there, hitting the 114, and dink there. Oh, that was nasty. In real life, that could have been a puncture in real life. So we're on with Anton Pol. 114 still in the pits as we speak. Then Ben Cheeseman, the first to take one of his 2 mandatory pit stops for the GT3 frontrunners. An hour and 28 minutes left to go then in round 6 of the championship. Having a look at that calendar then to explain some of the changes. Now, we mentioned it earlier on in today's race, but you'll note that rounds 9 and 10 have been shifted forward now, with the season now set to wrap up on the 4th of October 2025 as opposed to I think it was the 18th originally. And this is in line with some changes coming up in terms of an upcoming collaboration, which we've yet to formally announce, but the announcement will likely be out this coming week, as well as the introduction or hurrying forward for the console endurance series, of which again announcements should be coming this week. Now, this is on the grounds we can get confirmation done on all sides. There are a lot of hands on deck here working on this project, mine included, so it's a lot on the table here heading into the winter months of 2025. All that really means right now, from where we stand here in the Nürburgring GP, it will be here next Saturday, for Suzuka. And then we'll have a 2-week break between Suzuka and Hungaroring. Then it'll be 3 weeks in a row here, the Solo Multiclass Endurance Championship, Hungaroring, Indianapolis, and Zolder, to bring us to the end of the championship. And all the while, we'll have the Sunday League running we're set to pick up things in the next round of the championship from the very same circuit here at the Nurburgring GP. So after 30 minutes of racing, here is where it stands at the moment. Tyler Vermaak leads the charge with the fastest lap of the race. Daniel Durga in second and Anton Pol in third. Radoslav Kowalczyk in fourth position with Porsche Ben Cheeseman, having taken in the first of his 2 pit stops, finds himself in fifth in the 114 McLaren. Christian Lebay leads GT4, and in second is Timothy Jolicoeur. Norbert Horvath in third with the Ginetta team. Alex Albert in fourth and Karl Martel in fifth. We sadly lost 2 drivers over the course of today. One from GT3 and from GT4. We lost the Mercedes and the Ford. We'll leave you with the sound of the mighty 6.2 litre V8 engine here from the leading GT4 Christian Lebay. We'll be back in just a moment's time. So we're still on board with Christian Lebay as he leads the charge for GT4. What a sound that is coming from that Chevrolet. You can see the Radoslav Kowalczyk up to fourth then after that first pit stop by Cheeseman. Still waiting to see them what the remainder of our GT3s plan on doing past the half-an-hour mark, but they're in and around the first of their pit stop windows. No notion of a move into the pits so far for Radoslav Kowalczyk. The 991 stays out. You can see here Albert and Horvath, 2 GT4s. They're up ahead of them was Ben Cheeseman, who's already taken the first of his pit stop runs today. So no suggestion across the field here of anyone moving into the pit lane. We'll check here to see if Tyler Vermaak's suggesting the idea of a first pit lane run. Now, of course, doesn't really stand to lose an awful lot. He's got the other 2 drivers nailed pace-wise. Now is really the time to maybe see what the tyres are capable of doing. That perhaps is the explanation behind why he's staying out. Can see here, this is the potential fight coming up in a moment's time here for 4th position. Now, we're on board right now with Radoslav Kowalczyk. Right behind him is Ben Cheeseman, so we are actually seeing a battle take place here. The hour and 22 mark. Up through the Schumacher S as we go then. The 991 and the 114, that was wrapped up as quickly as it arrived. Descending upon him like an ancient plague there, the 114. Had him up for breakfast. Radoslav Kowalczyk had nothing that he could have done in that situation. That's the end of that. Norbert Horvath finds himself in a precarious spot as he finds himself only 4 seconds away from Division 2nd and 10 seconds away from Division 4th. Rather lonely at the back of the GT4 podium then, but not that he'll be arguing. This will be his second, I believe, in a row appearance to the podium with Ginetta in this championship. So very well, fair play to him. Amongst a swarm of Chevrolets. I mean, you look at that GT4 category, you take that Ginetta out of the equation, and what do you have there? You have Gen 3 supercars, basically. It's just all Chevrolet, nothing but Chevrolet. So that Ginetta really stands out as a diamond in the rough there. A swarm of Chevys on all sides, and a little plucky Ginetta somehow stuck in and amongst them. I think that stands a testament really to Horvath's ability behind the wheel, because the Ginetta, you know, up against the Chevrolet pound for pound, you would not think the Ginetta would have much a chance, but it is proven to be incredibly sharp in those corners, and that has been really its upper hand. That has been its one defining crux against the rest of the grid of Chevrolets there, is that pound for pound in a corner, being light definitely pays dividends. For Max into the pits then. An hour and 20 left to go in today's race. So we have a look here with Daniel Durga, who now leads this race, mind you. So let's get on board with Durga and Pole. This is now effectively for the race lead. 4 seconds between the pair of them. Let's get on board with Daniel Durga, who is now your race leader. And a drive-through penalty for Tyler Vermaak. So where we might have thought that strategically, yes, he could definitely have a chance of undercutting, he may actually have to fight for the lead on track here. Daniel Durga does lead. Tyler Vermaak has a drive-through penalty to serve. So that's the second time a drive-through's been issued in today's race. The first time was for Ben Cheeseman. Now Tyler Vermaak finds himself in trouble, as that drive-through penalty will invite Cheeseman in front of him. So I don't believe what I'm seeing here. The two McLarens have found themselves in a real spot of bother up in GT3 for such a small grid. They've still found themselves the centre of quite a big bit of trouble. Out through turn 5. Don't let the penalty get to you here. Down through turn 6 he goes. Tyler Vermaak will not be happy with the way things have gone. So, currently residing in third place. That drive-through penalty, 24 seconds is the gap he's got to Ben Cheeseman. So, theoretically, probably not a case, looking at the data now, that he'll lose the position out 100% to Ben Cheeseman. We'll see whether or not he chooses to serve that drive-through penalty on this lap then. It has definitely been quite the crowd splitter for Tyler Vermaak. We can see in the pits at the moment then goes Anton Pol, as well as Radoslav Kowalczyk, Norbert Horvath and Alex Albert to make a very lively field. And I believe we just lost Anton Pol. I am very confused. Now, I don't want to suspect the worst, but that doesn't look like a great sign here on this grid. If we're seeing drivers vanish in the pit lane, we see Tyler Vermaak has come in to serve that drive-through penalty. Right behind him there, you can see the approach of the number 119 Chevrolet of Christian Lebay, leading the GT4 category. Into the pits he goes. So Vermaak serving his drive-through. Lebay's into the pits. We've just lost Anton Pol. So Daniel Durga will lead this race now with no competition from the Nissan. There's Anton Pol. He does rejoin this field, but he'll be several minutes down before he exits the pit lane. So he finds himself actually much too in the same in condition as Radoslav Kowalczyk was back in Zandvoort last week. That is mighty unfortunate then for Anton Pol. Tyler Vermaak having served his drive-through penalty. Right now, he'll actually find himself up a position where he wasn't expecting to be necessarily, because he will have overtaken Anton Pol by the looks of things. See, leaving the pits alongside Anton Pol. They're the race leader for GT4. Right now, I believe, as a matter of fact, it is Norbert Horvath leading that charge with Ginetta. And I'm not 100% on this because the data is still taking its royal time to refresh, but we will double check in on all of this. So as far as the data is willing to tell us, Lebay still leads after a very confusing last sort of 5 minutes or so there. You can see here's Karl Martel, he's in 5th, Albert 4th. Durga leads GT3. Anton Pol looking to lose position out here to Radoslav Kowalczyk. You can see things are looking a little bit fragile for the number 991. He had a little momentary blip past the checkered line there to start lap 21 of this race. Out of the pits comes Timothy Jolicoeur. So as far as we know right now, Lebay still leads. You can see the confident margin he holds right now to Jolicoeur. 48 seconds. We don't even get to finish the first part of that. 47 seconds now as it stabilizes up through the Schumacher S's. Getting a look here, we can see that things are exceptionally close between Jolicoeur and Horvath. 4.2 seconds for what could be division second in a moment's time here for the Ginetta. An hour and 15 left to go, so 3/4 of an hour into today's race, and plenty has happened, and plenty still could happen. And I am astonished to see that after what didn't feel like a particularly long time, Anton Pol is back out on the track after that disconnect. So the fight has begun to reclaim a podium position in today's race. All he has to do is clear Schiessmann, and he has to clear, Kowalczyk as well. So that's quite a task ahead of him here. He is definitely down against the odds. Right now, it could be a surprise victory for Daniel Durga, especially because of that drive-through penalty issued to Tyler Vermaak just earlier on after his first pit stop. Durga has strategic advantage in the number 12. Bear in mind, this is his debut drive here in the Solo Multiclass Endurance Championship and the first ever driver to appear from Slovakia. And he has really took an opportunity and ran with it. And fair play to him. He's joined in the Ferrari, and they've not got the best of balance of performance packages for this round. I believe it's quite a negligible change looking at it there. It's 4 kilos added, but still they're in the positives, where the greater majority of their contemporaries on this grid are in the negatives. And he's really played against a fairly unfair set of cards and is presently winning. So, colour me impressed, Mr. Durga. Colour me impressed. Right now, he leads the race. Kowalczyk up to 4th then because of Anton Pol's disconnect, but Pol is back out on track and will be chasing him down over the next hour and 13 minutes. Kowalczyk's already taken the first of his 2 pit stops. It would take a lot here to force him back down to 5th. Vermaak, after that drive-through penalty, presently is in 3rd place. Ben Schiessmann is 5.5 seconds up the road. You can see that he has reeled in his fellow McLaren at a rate of knots there. A little shaky there on the exit of turn 4. Was a little eager to get over to the right-hand side of the road. Picked up a bit of gravel on his way towards turn 5. Now to turn 6. In front of him, there's Norbert Horvath, and the Ginetta swiftly moves out of the way to allow the McLaren an easier path out of turn 6. Making our way down to turn 7. Now catching up to fellow Malois teammate Timothy Jolicoeur. Perhaps having a little bit of a flashback to Valencia in the Sunday League. Does not want to get into any more altercations with his teammates. Tyler Vermaak now only 5.2 seconds. So Daniel Durga's in the pit lane. Ben Schiessmann is only but a moment up the road here. So we'll stay on board with Ben Schiessmann, as in a moment's time he could actually take the lead of this race. Despite starting with that drive-through penalty, he rounds Coca-Cola curve, Daniel Durga is making his way out on track here. I think the number 12 is just far enough up the road. We can see him actually down towards turn 1 on our maps there. So Cheeseman still within a chance here as that gap continues to drop down. Only 5.5 seconds to the leading Ferrari. We'll stay on board with him, though, because he looks to find himself the center of quite an interesting battle yonder the horizon. As not too far in the background there, 4.7 seconds away, is his fellow McLaren. That's Tyler Vermack on his returning drive then to McLaren. It's going to be very interesting in the next couple of years to see what McLaren does in the world of endurance racing. Of course, their efforts to move into Le Mans Hypercar and the World Endurance Championship for 2027 will coincide with the return of the Ford Motor Company, making for an incredibly exciting 2027 season, not too far away from now. Tabbing back into the question from earlier on as well, it was asked by, if we go back into our Twitch chat, it was asked by TechSteph, who asked, would you ever consider doing LMU? Would you ever cover an LMU series in the future? Definitely yes. To reiterate the answer to that question, because I felt like I kind of waffled for a little bit, but yes, absolutely. And I think it's because it is the next thing. It's the next big thing forward. I think for the time that ACC came out, GT racing was at its sort of motorsporting relevance peak for most people. Because now when you think of GT racing, your mind is drawn to one of 3 destinations. You are either drawn to the Nurburgring 24, and oh, that's a disconnect there, I believe, from Ben Cheeseman. No, he's still there. That heart attack there, that was horrifying. It goes to one of 3 destinations. It goes to the Nurburgring 24, it goes to the Daytona 24, or it goes to the Le Mans 24, right? The holy trinity of 24-hour races. You could also, if you're a contrarian, say the Spa 24, if you're so inclined. But the bottom line is, it doesn't really end up in the court of something like the GT World Challenge Series, or the, you know, the Intercontinental GT Series, or the British GT Series. I mean, unless you are British, then you might be thinking of that. But even I, as a British person, I'm not thinking of that. I'm thinking of Le Mans. I'm thinking of Nürburgring. I'm thinking of Daytona. The World Endurance Championship is the next big thing for gamers, and where GT racing was all the rage when this game came out, everyone wants to do endurance racing now. Everyone wants a slice of the prototype pie. Everyone wants a way in to drive a Le Mans hypercar, because even though it was criticized upon entry for being slower than the LMP1s, I hold the opinion, and this is not a particularly hot take, but the Le Mans hypercar era is coming to be the greatest era in the history of endurance racing. That is a bit of a confusing one there. We just saw that Ben Cheeseman actually appeared to have both of his pit stops taken, then one came back. It was very strange. We'll cut away from Cheeseman for the time being. We get on board here with the driver in hot pursuit of the position he covets right now. Tyler Vermack is chasing down second place. So back onto that discussion about LMU. Everyone wants a way in now to drive the hypercars. LMU is the most accessible avenue besides iRacing. Not everyone wants to spend the money that iRacing costs. No one wants to commit to that kind of almost religious commitment to sim racing that you often have to have if you want to have a lot of fun playing iRacing. A lot of people do have to commit quite a lot of their time to it. I've seen people either burn out almost instantly from the level of commitment required, or the frustration of having iRacing, or frustration of using iRacing, or I've seen them flourish in that environment, and it can be a really divisive factor that can throw quite a lot of people off of sim racing. I think games like Le Mans Ultimate definitely bring that much closer into being more accessible. I think that's what's definitely allowed the game to take off, is that it presents the same kind of things that people want in iRacing, which would be, you know, your multi-class hypercar and LMP and GT races, and it puts it in a much more ACC-shaped package, if that makes any sense. It's as if you've packaged ACC to have prototypes, is what I feel like Le Mans Ultimate reminds me a lot of. Having a look at the way the game is laid out, the way that the infrastructure for the game works, the online connectivity and infrastructure for the game works in a very similar way to ACC. And I think what everyone wants now is prototypes. I think everyone treats this game like Le Mans Ultimate minus the hypercars. And a lot of people they're getting bored. They're getting tired. They want something new. They want something faster. They want something fresher. And you're in no short supply of new things in the world of Le Mans hypercars. Of course, the new generation of Le Mans racing car, of endurance racing prototypes. They're getting a new car pretty much every year until 2028. We're getting Genesis next year. We're getting both Ford and McLaren in 2027. There could be even more on the horizon that we don't even know about right now. And I think I want to clarify this point as well, because I get the feeling in a lot of the live streams that I do, I end up getting a little bit negative more than I should about ACC. Do I think ACC is a bad game? No, of course not. I wouldn't be broadcasting for it if I didn't enjoy this. The thing is with ACC is that this is the best thing console players have right now. And that is soon going to change. That is the bottom line of it. Is this is possibly the best sim racing game on console. And now you can point and you can make your assessments, you can make your arguments, you can say, oh, what about Project Cars 2? What about if we're talking just straight fundamentals, no funny business, why aren't we talking about Dirt Rally 2.0? For what everyone mostly wants, which is endurance, GT3 racing, this is the best thing. There are alternatives, but they don't do it like this. And this is about as hardcore as console players can get. Do I think that kind of avenue comes from places like, you know, for example, Rensport, Race Room? No. I don't see it. ACC is very set in stone. It's very well founded now in the sim racing community as being the best choice for console. If you're not looking to spend 4 figures on a PC and a rig and all of that, and you just want to get a nice, decent rig, and you want to play on console, you really don't have to look much further. And they're going to be absolutely spoiled rotten for choice next year. Because look in 2026, right? So we've got Project Motor Racing. We have Le Mans Ultimate, more than definitely. I mean, they don't get late stage talks now with Sony and Microsoft if you're not going to be releasing something. That's just silly. And then you've got both the iRacing Studios games. So that would be NASCAR and IndyCar. You can't go wrong. 2026 is the year of the console sim racer. It's going to be the golden age we are approaching here. We're getting closer and closer, and this is just in terms of consoles as well. We are getting closer and closer to the grand unification of gaming. There has been a huge invisible wall divide for decades now on sim racing between console and PC. We are so close to seeing that wall topple. Microsoft is gearing up for a massive stage partnership with Steam. We could be months from it now, the way I see it. It has never been a better time to be a console sim racer. For ACC, I don't doubt that once this wave crashes, that it's going to be one of the games that gets swept up in the tide. And for what good it's provided, I'm sure that people will remember ACC fondly, myself included. And that's the end of that tangent for now. Looking back then at the grid with an hour and 3 minutes left to go, Daniel Durga leads the charge then for Ferrari. The 114 of Ben Schiessman is in second place, but is having quite a few outages here and there. That is getting a bit troubling, I would say. Tyler Vermack in third with the fastest lap. Radisław, I should say, sorry. Kowalczyk in fourth position, and Anton Pol in fifth. Then into the GT4s. Lebay leads from Jolicoeur, Horvath, Albert and Martel for our 5 GT4s on the grid there. It's definitely quieting down now towards the midway mark here. An hour and 2 minutes left to go. We can see we're just watching that data, and apologies if it has been a bit of a quieter stream today. Of course, we can only do so much with a grid of this size, but we're just watching that data tick by between Durga, Cheeseman and Vermaak. All of them in en passant here, 2.5 seconds apiece from each other. And it's real swings and roundabout scenario here. We're seeing a very long-winded concertina effect at play, as they are almost in perfect synchronization for the gap between one another, being exactly the same distance apart. You can see sometimes it swings out to be closer to Durga, sometimes it swings out to be closer to Vermaak. But for the man in the middle here, caught in this pendulum effect, Ben Cheeseman is a little bit lost out. All of them having taken their first pit stop, it could be strategy that decides today's race. Right now, on just pace alone, it's undecided. We can see that slight incorrection out of turn 7 has definitely teetered the scales back in favor of Vermaak catching Cheeseman, as it's now a second up ahead for Durga. To 3 seconds at the gap right now. Does find himself in a very tough spot here. He's caught between a rock and a hard place. One of the worst places to be over the course of a GT race. See here the story of Anton Pol. He was up in the fight for second in this race today. Sadly, after that disconnect, he's in 5th, but on the long drive to a return to a potential top 3. Could it still be done then? There's nothing to say that it couldn't. If I'm not mistaken, he's only, I believe, looking at it here on the timetables. I want to point out that, okay, so he is, okay, so he is a lap down. So I'm not entirely sure of the chances there. It does show, at least on this lap, that he is on the same lap as Kowalczyk in the 991. Back on board here with Cheeseman. And there is Kowalczyk up ahead of him. Actually going to lap the Porsche. As we hit the halfway mark of the race then, let's look back at the grid. Those, to be completely honest, nothing has changed in the last time we checked. Durga still leads. Cheeseman's in second. Vermaak, though, is closing in. Keep an eye on that. You can see the only thing standing between him and his fellow McLaren, Ben Cheeseman, is the lapped car there. That's the 991 moving to the left-hand side of the track to the outside at turn 6. That was Radosław Kowalczyk. So Vermaak has now got clear line of sight on Ben Cheeseman. That fight for second could kick off here in a moment's time. As a matter of fact, let's stay on board with Tyler Vermaak. 1.7 seconds to target then, if he means to catch up to Ben Cheeseman. Up through the Schumacher S as we go. And that's a big knock there. You can see the upset over the rear quarter just as he made his way around the second part of the Schumacher S's. It caught the rear right there a little bit. It did cause this very sudden teeter in the other direction for him. Dust kicked up in his face there from Cheeseman. Down into Hatzenbeck we go. Into the Vidal chicane. Now, I want to get a view on board the McLarens here just to see how they're tackling it now. You can see he dodges that second sausage curb, that raised curb on the inside at turn, that'll be turn 15, with such incredible precision there. I'm wondering if we can get a camera set up on that spot and see just how close the drivers are willing to get to that raised curb on the inside. The gap now 1.6 seconds as we start lap 31. Bear in mind as well, over in the Sunday League, we'll be back onto the endurance format. Oh my word, it's trouble for Tyler Vermaak. A big slide out in the arena section, but he's into the wall. That has become quickly a problem for Tyler Vermaak. You can see he touched the far side of the track, and that caught the rear of his car. He was in a dead slide, ultimately collected at the inside barriers. One tiny stab of oversteer has created a monstrous snowball effect for Tyler Vermaak, and it's resulted in quite a heavy chunk of damage on the nose of that 835. So to pick up where we left off, we now get back on board with the car in second as he's caught up massively to the leading Ferrari of Daniel Durga. 1.3 was the lowest of it, was 1.3 seconds, now up to 1.6 between himself and the Ferrari as we head up the Schumacher S's. What happened there for Durga? Let's get on board with the leading Ferrari. And it seems trouble aloof then for the number 12. All manner of issue for the Ferrari. Doesn't appear to be any readily apparent damage on the front or rear of the number 12, but he is struggling in some capacity and is losing time. Is it a fuel concern for the Ferrari? Something is amiss with the engine because he's losing steam. See, they do actually clip that curb then, looking from the external cameras. Right now, we're on with a very suddenly urgent set of affairs for the race leader, Daniel Durga, as he's only 1.4 seconds in the lead from Ben Cheeseman. So the chances here, as he's lost 2 tenths to Cheeseman behind him over the last lap just gone, for him to continue to hold the race lead, are slimming as the McLaren reels into frame. Wide out through turn 1, then to turn 2. This could quickly brew to be some serious trouble here for the race leader. Right now, the current prerequisites to fall into that fight for first is 5 tenths of a second away. You know, once it drops below that second margin, we're going to start calling this that battle for first place here. Right now, he seems to have been able to recuperate just a little bit of momentum here on this lap, but then he's caught out by Alex Albert's GT4. Gives him the lights there to try and get around. This is a really urgent drive now out of Daniel Durga. He knows that he stands on the premises here of getting an inaugural race debut win. That is something practically unseen here on NLRL. So these outstanding circumstances have given rise to a potential glory hunt for Daniel Durga. And can he fulfill on that with 55.5 minutes left to go? Suddenly, this relatively quiet round of the championship has become exceptionally loud. 1.5 seconds, still the gap between the McLaren and the Ferrari on the front row. A little bit more dust there on the exit of Warsteiner. We are starting to see whether or not is it driver fatigue or is it the machine wearing down. What is happening here for Durga and his Ferrari? Up through the Vidal chicane. He lost a considerable amount of time there to Cheeseman in the last couple of laps. So one is left wondering what was the catalyst event then for the Ferrari's downturn in performance after the halfway mark. 156.1 to a 156.3. So he's back on the mend here, 2 tenths faster than Cheeseman. 10 seconds away from the pair of them with a 156.7 as Tyler Vermack also floundering. Time on that last lap was 6 tenths off of Durga's leading Ferrari. We stay on board for the time being here. That gap's still 1.6 seconds. We'll take a look around the field to see what else is going on here. Right now, the main topic of the day here, past the halfway mark of this race, resides in the court of our leading 3 here. The 2 McLarens and Ferrari that comprise our top 3 could soon be in a full-blown battle for the race lead. It hangs in a very, very delicate balance at this time. Heading up through the Schumacher S's, right onto the nose of the race leader there was Norbert Horvath, and the 987 Ginetta still holds division 3rd, so is on for a 2nd podium appearance in a row down in GT4 after Zandvoort last weekend. Hangs so delicately in the balance there. That has been one of the most carefully maintained 1.5 second gaps in the series history. For the 6 rounds that it has ran so far, this is one of the most carefully maintained leads I've ever seen. Looking around the field, we could see the pressing fight here for 4th, as Anton Pohl has achieved what is seemingly an impossible task and has reeled in on track another driver for position after that disconnect. We didn't think it possible, but you can see right now that Nissan is moving with such incredible stride here to Radoslav Kowalczyk, sorry.
Don't know why I was suddenly struggling to pronounce that name. We'll stay on board with Kowalczyk down into turn 1. Into the Mercedes Arena section. That is now down to 1.1, now 1 second. So we are seeing that fight for 4th kick off here between Pol and Kowalczyk. Two Polish drivers go head-to-head here for 4th position. Porsche versus Nissan. Who comes out on top then? As Anton Pol does not show any signs of slowing down here in his stride up towards 4th position. Let's get on board with the attacking driver's perspective then. Anton Pol, who took a race win in this very series down in Misano, gets up on the inside at turn 6, and like clockwork there, is up to 4th. Kowalczyk running things out wide. We could barely see him on the cameras there for the time that these two were side by side. Down into turn 7, Anton Pol solidifies his move to 4th place. Bear in mind, from a strategic standpoint, he still stands to lose out to Kowalczyk by nature of still having 2 pit stops to serve. In 51 minutes, the math just doesn't add up. That gap now is getting very, very close here for Daniel Durga, claustrophobically so. And he wants to maintain that 1.5 second safety zone if he means to hold on to the race lead by the time he gets to his 2nd pit stop. But Ben Cheeseman could pull an absolute blinder for strategy here. It really does hang in a very carefully honed and crafted balance between these two. Ferrari versus McLaren, the two juggernauts of ACC's GT3 division. Go head to head here. In what started off as a bit of a hectic round, then became a relatively quiet one, as per tradition here in the Solo Multiclass Endurance Championship, on what is definitely one of the smallest grids of the season, has now given rise to a very, very curious story indeed of newcomer Daniel Durga fighting against Ben Cheeseman. Cheeseman looking for his first win in NLRL history. Durga also looking for his first win. So an incredibly optimistic look at the race ending today in the next 50 minutes shows great signs of a brand new race winner. Right now, 10 seconds away from the pair of them, Tyler Vermack. Text F in chat asking, do you think Cheeseman should undercut? It's tough to say. Pace-wise, Durga's still got it. He had that momentary blip that brought him into this question in the first place. I think right now, if Cheeseman drops any further back from the 1.5, I'd say when he gets in and around that 2-second gap is definitely an indication here to come in and get some new tyres and then try and power things through for the next 49 minutes of racing. It's tough to call. I'm not a strategist, but I'd say thinking man's decision here. If he's pushed outside of that buffer zone, there's very clear telltale signs the McLaren can't give any more than this, then the pit lane is imminent. This is the thinking man's game here. I would not take what I say with a grain of salt. I'm paid to commentate, not strategize. In my honest opinion, if he drops out of that 1.5 second gap into the 2 seconds, that's a telltale sign in any books there. But you can see jumping over that chicane. That's another thing as well. The moment that it looks like that the GT leading the charge here, the GT3, the number 12 Ferrari, is struggling, and you know that the tyres won't get you much further out past him, then it would be a great time. You can see in that last lap, he was the faster of the two. So you can see that he is starting to struggle here. And this kind of pressure from Cheeseman could force Durga in. I'd say follow him in at the same time. If there's the suggestion that the number 12 could dive for it, follow him in. So having a look around the field right now, we are getting closer and closer to that pit window. And that's in and around 18 minutes from now. You know, you've got to hand it here to Tyler Vermack. Despite that hit against the wall. In fact, let's see if we've got that on the replays still, as we bring the replays back into question. This was earlier on lap 31, quite some time ago now. And that was that nasty slide off in the Mercedes Arena section. Caught a little bit of tail end there, out through turn, looking at that there, that's turn 2. And then caught the far end, the strip of, I think that's AstroTurf there on the right-hand side. And that just took all grip out of the equation for him there. And he's still going despite the damage on the nose of that McLaren. So fair play to him, all things given. And he's definitely going to have to put his thinking cap on here and come up with a real gourmet recipe for that pit strategy in the next 47 minutes if he means to cut either of these two off for the race lead. So back onto that discussion, and we can see this is the closest we've seen it in a good while here between Cheeseman and Durga. That leading Ferrari is slowly bleeding time here, so it may be a case that the Ferrari jumps in fairly soonish, and with 47 minutes left to go in the race, if he does it now, oh my word, you can see there, that's a moment of vulnerability. Does Durga consider that as an option into the pits? No, so it looks like the pair of them will have to fight on track. Let's stay on board then with the Ferrari. Right alongside him for a moment there was Ben Cheeseman. This is the fight of the race lead that we've been waiting for an hour and 15 minutes now. Cheeseman has got a lot of confidence there in the back pocket. After that drive-through penalty, we thought he could have been down and out for the charge of GT3. Now he finds himself right at the premise of the race lead. Tyler Vermack's into the pits then, so he is trying for the long game here in the next 46 minutes. These two will be burning each other out before we hit the what you could consider as the ideal zone for the pit window in about 16 minutes time, with about half an hour left to go in the race. That would have marked about an hour between pit stops. See if we can catch on board then with the attacking of two. We see in the background here Kowalczyk being followed around turn 1 by the GT4 of Jolicoeur. Vermack into the pit, so let's stay on board with Cheeseman. This could be absolutely huge for him here. He's waited a long time to be at the chances of leading a race. This could be his first race win. That gap currently at 1 second between the pair of them. Up through the Schumacher S as we go. I just want to point this out very quickly as well. Just because we have followed Cheeseman on track over the course of this event, there is that off chance that he does just randomly disappear and it cuts to another driver. We're not doing that. That's not on our own volition. That's just because when the game registers a micro disconnect, it just throws you to the nearest driver. So that's just a heads up from us here. So this is what we've been waiting for. Who pulls the trigger then? Because we are not too far away from that pit window. It would not be an unrealistic expectation of either of these two to go for the pit lane. Neither of them think of it though. Into Coca-Cola curve we go. Wider of the two was the Ferrari there, so you can see clear issues for the front end on Daniel Durga's number 12. The fronts are starting to wear out quite a ways there, but so too was the case for Cheeseman as he finds himself actually 4 tenths slower in the last lap. But it's that third sector he seems to have the Ferrari reeled in on. That's where the gap gets to be its closest. Wide out through turn 2. Very nearly a replica of the incident that took Tyler Vermack into the inside barriers there. You can see the Ferrari in front is scrambling for grip there on the far sides of the track, taking every bit of runoff that it can. If he keeps this up, there is a very likely chance the stewards will get involved with him there, and we could see a stop go 30 for track limits for that Ferrari if it keeps this antics up. This is desperate now, we're seeing from the number 12. For the 114 though, he's just got to keep his head low here, not let the pressure of fighting get to him. Goes very late on the brakes for turn 7, and he put himself ever closer. Doesn't want to get too tunneled in here. He knows that there's already issues with the tyres on that 114. We've seen the inklings of that oversteer creep in on him in sector 1 this lap. And that's what I'm talking about there. That section of the track could so easily throw you into the wall. And it very nearly did. You saw the McLaren fight for every shred of grip it could out of the Schumacher S's. Now through Warsteiner. 43.5 minutes left to go. Suddenly, this quiet race has become very, very exciting. Toward the Vidal chicane we go. Now, we've seen how confident the drivers are getting over this section of the track, but when the tyres start giving way is when you start to see some serious offs occur. Of course, we saw that incident from Van Veltzen, but that was a technical failure, less so than the tyres that took him out of the charge for round 6. Down towards turn 1 we go then. This was the area of the track of great concern to the McLarens earlier on in this race. Neither the Ferrari or the McLaren seem to have too much of an issue this time around. You can see slightly better line for Durga. He's conserving a little more momentum here, but it's this area where he ends up going wide last lap. very nearly replicates the same issue this time around. He's got the line a lot more tidier since lap 38. Down to turn 5 we go then. Camera's not giving us the best of perspective there as we mount the crest into turn 6. You can see just how close Cheeseman's willing to get this now. So he is properly lasered in on that Ferrari. He'll be in the slipstream on our run down towards turn 7. You can see already Durga trying to hold centre mass of the road back onto the racing line at the last second here to try and defend position off from Ben Cheeseman. This could be nuclear in a moment's time. Out through turn 7 we go. Up through the Schumacher S's then. That climb uphill, it can very easily take either of these two out of the title charge here for round 6. Down towards bit curve. Oh my god, super late on the brakes there for Ben Cheeseman. He's been incredibly lucky there. That's the incredibly rare concrete runoffs we have here at the Nurburgring. If it had been any other corner, that's game over. I think maybe there's your indication for a pit lane run. If you needed any clear signs of it there, the tyres just can't take the punishment. It's time to start playing the thinking man's game. Down towards the Vidal chicane. We'll see what Ben Cheeseman thinks of doing. Up ahead of him, Durga stays out. So too does Cheeseman. So blood's in the water and these two can smell it. They are looking to take positions here on the track. No funny business in the paddock. They are totally committed to the idea here of a fight on track, and fair play to them. You can see the story still unfold right now for Anton Pol. Right now, 20 seconds up the field from Kowalczyk. So the chances are there for Pol to finish in 4th. I don't want to speak too much on the odds of it, just because I don't have the numbers to hand, but the chances remain there. It would take, don't get me wrong, a miracle, but the chances are still there. 40.5 minutes then to the end of the line here. Let's check in with the GT4s. Here's Timothy Jolicoeur in 2nd place. Norbert Horvath maintains a carefully measured 3rd. Cutting over the Vidal chicane, though, Jolicoeur could accidentally incur the wrath of the stewards. Not this time around, so he's got unlucky there. Out through Vidal, now at the Coca-Cola curve. Looking at the leading car, then Christian Lebay has had a very calm drive compared to where things were only a few hours ago at Monza in the wet and wild conditions, fighting for the race lead with Asahi Ota. Now he finds himself uncontested here in the Solo Multiclass Endurance Championship, the head of a 5-car pack, and by a long, long margin. He's gone uncontested in this round here. No one dare stand in the way of that 119. He's on for his 4th this season. Karl Martel in 5th at the moment, having taken both of his pit stops. It is a bit of a peculiar one for Martel. He started a long ways further back than he'd like to here. See Alex Albert as well in 4th, also yet to have taken his final pit stop. So that is creeping up on the greater majority of the grid in the next 9 minutes is where that last pit stop wave could occur. Getting on board here with Tyler Vermack. He has taken both of his pit stops, so he is waiting. Buying his time, chipping away those solid lap times here, waiting for the leading two to come into their pit stops, because the moment they hit that pit limiter line, it's all to play for here. If Vermack's now got the comfort of clean air and is able to lay in times equal to, if not greater than, our leading pair of cars, there's nothing to say that he can't emerge right alongside, if not ahead of them, in the next 8 or so minutes. It appears my dog has a problem. Hello. So we'll stay on board at the time of recording right now. 1.3 seconds is the gap between Durga and Cheeseman. We'll stay on board with a pair of them. We'll be back in just a moment.
So that's that issue all cleared. We're still back with the fight then between Durga and Cheeseman. That gap now having swung out to 2 seconds. I believe, yes, the 114 has come into the pits. So that is the next chapter going forward. Ben Cheeseman into the pits. Daniel Durga stays out and leads here in the Nurburgring. 37 minutes left to go. 7 minutes away from the ideal pit stop window here for pit stop number 2. Bay also into the pits as well in the 119 Chevrolet. So you can see there's Cheeseman and LeBay on their way to the pit boxes respectively there for the McLaren and the Chevrolet. Here we can see Anton Pol still in 4th place at the moment, 32 seconds up the road from Kowalczyk. So the chances are still there. Keep that thought alive then for the 486. The chances are still there. He's got 36 minutes to do 2 pit stops. Fundamentally stands to lose over a minute and a half, but the chances are still there. So there goes LeBay out of the pit box. He's gone uncontested there and still doesn't look to be joined by anyone in the near vicinity. The number 99 would be nearest to him, and that's the lapped Chevrolet of Karl Martel. Just making his way down to the line there. Last lap was a 2:06.447. Getting on board with Durga, still leading that charge. I am curious to see then if we will see Daniel Durga again tomorrow in the Sunday League. Now let's get a look here. Whilst we've got a little bit of time, we'll do a little bit of homework here by having a look through the grid for Sunday League tomorrow. Nothing wrong with checking how things are going to be going for the event tomorrow. Now we'll kick off tomorrow at 6:30. We'll be in for the Nurburgring, just the same as we are here. But I want to know, as you can see in the pits as well, there's Norbert Horvath down in GT4. This could decide the podium, mind you, as well. So we'll check in there with Horvath. Albert not too far away. Actually, is having, I believe, just got past Horvath. So Alex Albert now up to 3rd. Jolicoeur is also yet to have taken his pit stop as well. So a lot to play for here. Anton Pol takes the first of his 2. So he's got a gap healthy enough here to where he can rejoin the field nearby to Kowalczyk. I think I might know what he's planning here. If he doesn't think that Kowalczyk will come into the pits on this lap, I get the feeling he's going to try and synchronize his next pit stop with Kowalczyk so that he emerges alongside his fellow Pol in the 991 and then fight for 4th on the track all the way to the checkered flag. I can see that written in the stars here, but I get the feeling now that we've mentioned it, we've accidentally ratted out this secret plan. All right, now getting a look at where things are between Vermaak and Cheeseman. Only a single set of corners away there at the Coca-Cola curve. So Cheeseman still holds on to 2nd. Vermaak is closing in. 34 minutes left to go. Definitely the chance there for the 835 to catch back up to the driver he once shared the front row with. The world's weight there. The pressure on the shoulders of Daniel Durga. On debut, mind you, as well, to NLRL and to the Solo Multiclass Endurance Championship, he has left a very significant mark. So Kowalczyk's in the pits then. Does that open the gap back up then? Is Pol going to go back to back then for pit stop runs? Right now, these two are playing chess at the back of that top 5 for GT3. "33 minutes left to go." Really, besides that topic as to whether or not Daniel Durga will pit, not on this lap, clearly, as he's down towards turn 1. The real topic right now is who comes out on top in terms of this battle between Kowalczyk and Pol. Pol's down at turn 7. Kowalczyk's just down at turn 1. Is the gap wide enough here for Pol to get in and do one more pit stop? It's something that he's definitely weighing up because he knows on paper he's got the pace to catch Kowalczyk back up, but can he do so in 32 minutes? Most signs do point towards that there. Jolicoeur's on his way out of the pits as we speak. Albert still having yet to have taken his pit stop run, but is now up and ahead of Norbert Horvath.
but could stand to lose that position out. Horvath has taken both of his pit stops, so that Ginetta still gunning for another podium appearance here. Albert, on his second race into the Solo Multiclass Endurance Championship, is himself looking for a podium appearance. A lot to play for then for such a small grid. You know, good things do come in small packages. Down at turn 7 we go then. There's Kowalczyk, a switchback by the Chevrolet. Am I seeing this correctly? It is a switchback from a GT4. Well, if that's not signs that Albert's taking this very seriously, then I don't know what is. And that is a little embarrassing, I guess, for the 991. Kowalczyk won't be taking that one sitting down. That's not helped him at all either. We can see that Anton Pol is still out on track. So he's not caved immediately to the impulse to come in and immediately grab new tyres, knowing that he would still have plenty of chance here to fend off and then, or potentially attack Radoslav Kowalczyk for position. It is fascinating to see where they go here, because neither of these two are yielding. Neither of these two are hesitating in the face of one another here. These are very measured drives that we are seeing. Kowalczyk may be in a little bit of a trouble on that outlap there, having gotten switched back by a GT4. But he is now up and ahead of Albert. So checking in with the race lead, you can see that Daniel Durga is not waiting around here. He wasn't going to try and counter that early run into the pits by Ben Cheeseman. As a matter of fact, he has used this as an opportunity to leverage that clean open air, start setting in some properly consistent times. If we get a gander then at the last couple of times set by Durga onto where we are right now, getting a gander here, you can see pretty consistently in the 56 range right now. The high 56s, now that's definitely an indication, especially compared to where it was only 10 laps ago, that the tyres are starting to give way here. We've started to see less and less 55s, more and more 56s, even the occasional 57. You can make the argument that might be where he's encountering traffic, but the greater majority has the consensus at a high 56. He's been able to lay in some fairly consistent times here, and that's been building the gap up to Cheeseman, who right now is just heading out of turn 4 as Durga is heading into turn 12. So consistency is definitely key here in this race. And with just under 30 minutes left to go, will we see Daniel Durga on his way into the pits after long last here for his final run of the pits today? No, not this time around. So one more lap in the bookings then for the Slovakian talent. Looking back around the field then to see where our nearest fights could be coming from, we are left a little bit starved for choice here. This is when strategy has now crept all the way back in to conversation. We can see side by side up the Schumacher S's, though admittedly moving over to let the GT3 pass was Timothy Jolicoeur. Ben Cheeseman, the 114, having just got up past him there. So not a lot in the way of discussion here in the next couple of minutes. Really, a lot of what goes on today teeters on the decision of the number 12 to come in. Down in GT4, it is a decided affair right now. Unless something seriously untoward happens to Christian Lebet, it'll be a 4th win this season, further extending his lead of the GT4 Championship. Sadly, we're without the main heel of this championship to Lebet, one of his closest matches on this grid. That would have been Hayden Proger. He's still down and out, citing an injury, and won't be able to compete for the time being. And that is a rather big shame. He is a fantastic talent to have on the field. Would have been a very, very helpful addition to this field today, but obviously not much you can do when not all of the parts work. See, in the pits right now, Alex Albert, does he lose that position then out to Norbert Horvath? It's looking incredibly likely. He's still yet to have dropped back onto the wheels. So yes, he will lose that position out to Norbert Horvath. Let's get on board here with the Ginetta, now up back to Division 3rd, so it seems. Unless I've been informed otherwise there. Actually, no, it's Division 4th. So Norbert Horvath has lost out on his chances to come back to the podium. Timothy Jolicoeur and Alex Albert look to be taking home 3rd and 2nd. Albert, I must say, that's a real turnaround for him, because that's his 2nd race in and he's on the front row for GT4. and a Chevrolet 123. So I dare say, now, we've only ever seen a 1-2-3 victory once in the history of NLRL, and that has been from Ford. And that was at Season 3, Round 1 of the Sunday League at Brands Hatch, where in which we saw, I believe it was Rojnov, Cassier and Van Veltzen, or Van Veltzen and Cassier, in that order. We'll pull up the statistics on that, actually, because we don't want to be incorrect about these things. It's insulting to the drivers. So Brands Hatch, it was Rojnov, Van Veltzen, and Cassier to make the first ever 1-2-3 for a manufacturer in NLRL, if I'm not mistaken. Of course, we'll double check the notes and get back to you tomorrow on Sunday to see if we were right about that all this time. We are potentially looking at a second here. No, as a matter of fact, because now, having swung massively in the opposite direction, the data finally updates and makes me look like a fool, because here on the podium is Norbert Horvath. So what was I thinking? We're looking over on our second monitor, we turn back, and oh, suddenly, I'm stupid now. Oh, this game, it never fails. Never fails to amaze me. How it takes 30 seconds to update track data, I just do not know. So having a look around the field right now, let's see what the status of affairs is for Daniel Durga. He's on his way to Hatzenbeck, so there is still that chance for the Ferrari to come into the pit. The question therein lies, will he do so on this lap? He's been leading the race tooth and nail here for the greater majority of time here in round 6 of the championship. On his way towards turn 16, he doesn't think of a look into the pit lane, and if he was, he's definitely avoided his opportunity here on lap 47. The sun, as a matter of fact, has started to set yonder the horizon, so we are slowly creeping in on the prospect of a nighttime race in the next 25.5 minutes here in the Nurburgring. So cutting from one race leader to another, if we go and catch on board here, here's Christian Lebay leading the charge for GT4. And discussing where things are going to go in the future for the Solo Multiclass Endurance Championship is a bit of a tough one. I think what we've been able to gather from this experiment so far, heading in past the season midway, a lot of people are interested in multi-class racing, but not a lot of people want to do multi-class racing. I don't know quite how to explain that without it being this blunt, but it's a case where someone once explained to me, and this is going to sound preposterous to bring up in the same string of conversation here. Someone once suggested that the concept of getting a KFC is actually better than getting one. And I think that's the case for multi-class endurance racing. I think most people like the concept of it because what do you think of? You think of Le Mans, you think of Daytona, you think of, I don't know, Sebring, for example, as well. And then you actually get to do it in this game and it's GT3s and GT4s. That's kind of all we have, though. That's the reality of it. We are just working with subsets of GTs. There's not a broad enough difference to warrant drivers caring. We can see into the pits there, though, just behind the race leader for GT4. As a matter of fact, was the race leader for GT3. So now we get to see Judgment Day arrives for Daniel Durga. Slowing things down, into the pit lane we go. Was that too quick for the Ferrari? Let's find out then. This could make or break what has been an incredible race so far for his first time here in NLRL. 23.5 minutes left to go. It all rides on this one pit stop. So he comes to a stop in his pit box now, and the timer begins for his crew to get underway with preparations on that car. Fuel and tyres most likely then at this stage of the race for Durga. Let's catch on board with Ben Cheeseman, the man likely to inherit the lead of this race. So this all rides on whether or not he's been able to do enough since that last pit stop. Has this been the gamble of a lifetime for Ben Cheeseman? We will find out very, very shortly as he rounds Coca-Cola curve. So he's onto the opening straight. It is looking incredibly likely that Ben Cheeseman could overtake the lead of the race today. Is it so? On his way towards the start-finish line, it is. Ben Cheeseman leads after all things said and done. 22.5 minutes left to go in round 6. We have a new race leader Cheeseman has took the gamble of a lifetime, and it has paid and then some. 9.2 seconds, the gap between himself and Durga, but now he has a very pressing issue. He's been out for a lot longer on these Pirellis than Durga. Durga will be warming up those Pirellis the moment they're in prime temperature, which won't take a long time here in the conditions we're in. That gap is going to start reeling in. He doesn't know it yet, but he's been hooked and he's on the line, and all it's a case now for Ferrari is reeling in that McLaren. But 21 minutes, does Durga have enough time? Well, the status of things is then, with 21.5 minutes left to go, Ben Cheeseman leads round 6 of the NLRL Solo Multiclass Endurance Championship powered by Malois Transport. Daniel Durga on debut in second place and ahead of Tyler Vermaak by a not so large gap right now. Those two could be fighting in the next couple of laps here. McLaren versus Ferrari, this time in the stead of the 835. In fourth place right now, Anton Pol, potentially within a chance here to try and overcut his fellow Polish driver Radosław Kowalczyk in the 991 to mark the end of the GT3s. Then down into GT4 right now, Christian Lebay still leads the charge ahead of Timothy Jolicoeur for an all Chevrolet front row. Usurping the chances of another manufacturer 1-2-3 is the presence of yet another podium appearance for Norbert Horvath in the 987 Ginetta. Alex Albert in Division 4, rounding out the top 5, Karl Martel. So we're back on board with the new race leader. Cards very well played there by Ben Cheeseman. In that last lap as well, he was 4 tenths faster than the Ferrari. So it's looking incredibly hopeful here for the Brits' first victory in NLRL. Scoff as any of you may at the grid size, this is still a hard-fought race win for this one here. That is what this is all about. It doesn't matter whether or not the grid is big or small. It's these moments of magic here that make this job all the worthwhile. And I can't imagine what flurry of emotions is going on in the cockpit of the 114. On his way then down towards turn 7. We'll catch up with Ben Cheeseman a little later on here. Just under 20 minutes left to go. Now comes the story of who emerges ahead for 4th position in what has been a grand strategic battle here between two Polish talents at the back of the GT3 grid. Anton Pol versus Radosław Kowalczyk. Now, I must say the turnaround here for Anton Pol. He was briefly on that podium today, and now this could all kick off for him. Make or break as to whether or not he finishes 4th or 5th today. And all of this, mind you, teeters on the judgment of 1 pit stop. So all of this, of whether or not he finishes up in 4th or down at the back of the top 5 right now, teeters on 1 run to the pits. So no pressure there for the 486. In terms of development drive for the Malois team, now this is what the main mission for Tyler Vermaak was today. It's what's enforced his decision to move over to McLaren. We did see momentary trouble arrive at the doorstep there of Ben Cheeseman. I really do pray now for no further troubles for the 114, given what lengths he has gone to today to fight for that lead. We'll hope that the track updates itself there. Still shows Vermaak in 3rd, Durga in 2nd in terms of localized data, but you can see the wider map is showing 2 first places. And that'll soon figure itself out. Now, this was the main mission for Tyler Vermaak, was data gathering. This is, I still am of the opinion, and I have yet to actually receive proper confirmation, so bear in mind a lot of this is speculative work, and it's a rumor at best, unsubstantiated, that his move to McLaren is in efforts to build up to a larger move into longer form multi-driver endurance racing for the Malois racing team. It has been a decision perhaps governed by the higher ups perhaps Lebay himself was involved in the discussions to move Vermac into the McLaren, knowing he's one of his fastest drivers. He knows he can take the punishment behind the wheel. He knows that he can deliver on some solid and fast times. Tyler Vermac may have gone around a few different teams in his time, but he is a solid driver at the end of the day. You can throw him in just about whatever machine and he can come out in third at the very worst of it. We've seen today, it was definitely some outstanding circumstances that have put him away from his chance of a fourth race win this season. I would definitely say that's come part and parcel of the teething issues that have come with his drastic move away from something old school like the Lexus to a more conventional mid-engine European machine at the court of McLaren. But all of this is in efforts to analyse what do we need to improve about the car from here on out. For Vermac, it's going to be stability. That rear end was all over the shop through qualifying and now through the race, and it's what's cost him so far his lead of the race. We saw that incident from earlier on. Let's see if we can get a look back at that. I'm pretty sure that was still the nearest replay. This was back on lap 31, and it was just that back-end instability out through turn 2, combined with just having the back-end step away at the complete wrong time, has cost him his chances there of a potential race lead. We have someone in chat here asking who's in the lead of the race. Now, there is a bit of a glitch going on here just because he's not got the best of internet connections, so it seems, or the server's not gelling super well. But your current race leader here is the number 114 McLaren of Ben Cheeseman, and he's had a very solid race today. Played against incredibly uncertain odds, mind you, as well, as he started with a drive-through penalty after what I believe was a speeding infraction during the starting procedure. So he has played massively against the odds to put himself where he is right now. It's been cunning vision and fantastic strategy that has put him at the front of this pack here. And really, he has fought quite hard for that one. He really, really has. He stands head and shoulders now above the competition, 12 seconds up the road. If he does move on in the next 15 and a half minutes to a race win, know that it is one of the most gratifying wins I think we've ever seen here for a first-time winner on NLRL. Cheeseman has really shined in today's race. More on him, though, in a few minutes' time. A little bit later on here. We want to try and get back onto the discussion. The strategy battle at the back of GT3 right now. Anton Pohl is getting closer and closer to the pit lane. He's on his way out of Warsteiner now as we speak. He'll be on towards Hatzenbetz and the Vidal chicane. Then that entry to the pits is right on his right-hand side. So down towards the Vidal chicane we go, the 486. Does he take the leap into the pits here just under the 15-minute mark? Yes, he does. So the prediction was correct. Here he comes into the pits. I reckon, looking at the gap right now, that is up north of 70 seconds. He may still have the chance here. On the grounds, nothing else needs seeing to on that Nissan. I'm pretty sure he's got that locked in. So very well done then to Anton Pohl. We'll see him after this pit stop to see how things play out for him. We see quickly as we catch on board with Timothy Jolicoeur, a bit of a skirt over the Michael Schumacher S's there. Very nearly got too unstable to handle. We've seen so many drivers grind along that rumble strip like it's a rail in Skate 3, and it's never usually ends well. You can see how low the rear of the Chevrolet hangs, though, on this setup. I'm surprised Jolicoeur's not find further trouble over the curbs there. You can see very little gap between himself and the road. Down into the Vidal chicane we go then, as the number 69. We'll catch up with him later on here. You can see this is the race leader for GT4. So to answer the question for a second time here for It's Loco. Who's in the lead of the race? For GT3 is Ben Cheeseman. Now for GT4 is Christian Lebay in the 119 Chevrolet. Now we can see the aftermath then of that move for Ben Cheeseman. He's nearly 12 seconds, as a matter of fact, up the road from Daniel Durga after that pit lane run. See here, moving over to let Cheeseman lap. Radoslav Kowalczyk in the 991. Tyler Vermack just getting out past Alex Albert. 4.5 seconds to Durga, so there is a chance here for a fight for second place. We'll stay on board with Vermack here. He's been on the charge since the end of his second pit stop. We'll see where he ends up in the next couple of minutes. 12.5 minutes then left to go of this 2-hour race today for round 6 of the championship. Getting a look at where we'll be next week. Oh my goodness, that slide through the corner there. Like he was using, it's almost sliding the car around the corner like he's, almost like he's rallying there. That's remarkable stuff from Tyler Vermack, or maybe just a trick of the lights. Who knows? Bringing up the calendar as to where we'll be next week. You'll find us on the 6th of September from the Suzuka International Motor Course for round 7 of the championship. Then a 2-week break before we rejoin at round 8 of the championship at the Nurburgring. Then Indianapolis on the 27th and Zolder on the 4th of October. Of course, round 9 and round 10 has been pushed forward. They were going to finish later on in the year. We pushed them forward in line with upcoming projects and announcements set to kick off, with the announcements coming in this week. Hopefully. Or next week, sorry. We are still at the end of this week, technically, aren't we? 11.5 minutes then left to go. We're still on board with Vermack. So having a look around the field right now, Cheeseman still leads, and this is the report with 10 minutes left to go. So Ben Cheeseman leads this charge with a withering size on the grid today. Nonetheless, he has leveraged a fantastic endgame strategy here in the last 10 minutes of this race to lead the charge here with 10 minutes to go. Daniel Durga in second, Tyler Vermack in third with the fastest lap, Anton Pol in fourth. Radoslav Kowalczyk usurped for control of that fourth position. He's now back to the back of the top 5 and at the back of the GT3 field there. Right alongside him is the lead of the GT4 field. That's Christian Lebay leading the charge. It's a Chevrolet 1-2 down in GT4 with Timothy Jolicoeur a lap down. He's in... Oh, my word. That is real big trouble there as we've just come onto the view for the number 69. Very wide out of bit. Now out of Warsteiner. He's back on the road. Very nearly. That could have been a yellow flag. Norbert Horvath then on the podium. Looking for his second podium in a row then with Ginetta. He's really playing against unstable odds, especially surrounded on all sides by Chevrolets in this round of the championship with 9.5 minutes to go. Alex Albert in Division 4th and Carl Martel rounds out the Division 5. The real topics therein lie as to what goes on inside this coveted top 3. Vermack is not too far away at all from Daniel Durga. Could he be looking at a front row finish by the end of today? The signs do point in the direction that puts the South African on the front row, but really he's got to dig quite deep now in the next 9 minutes to make that possible. The gap, last recording there, 6.1 seconds. And I am seeing trouble here for... What on earth has gone on there for Cheeseman? Why? What has happened there? What is going on for Ben Cheeseman? There's 8 minutes left to go, and he's, what, celebrated early? What is happening here? It's Loco in chat asking, do you play Fortnite? No. So what on earth happened for Ben Cheeseman? There is no real explanation in the books to show what was going on there. He had the race win in the palm of his hands, and now it's gone. Scattered. Waste side. Vanished. It's gone forever now. 8 minutes left to go. I haven't a Scooby what's gone on there. Some things in this line of work you just can't explain. His accelerator got stuck there, according to Super Ninja 92 in chat. That doesn't explain why he slowed down. What was he hitting the brakes? Let's go look back on that replay. I'm still just absolutely baffled by that there. Yes, so yeah, you can see he's holding the brakes on the car. Admittedly, that's not the best time to have picked up that replay, but what that has done is put Vermaak up to second. It's put Durga to the lead of this race, and he had to reset his wheel. Oh, that is the worst time for a technical malfunction. We already saw it befell Cas van Veltzen earlier in today's race. And now it has hit the race leader. That is gut-wrenching for Ben Cheeseman. So maybe perhaps a race to forget there. It was in the palm of his hands, and that technical malfunction has come in at the worst possible time for Cheeseman. He's now 4.3 seconds behind Vermaak. His chances of a race win scattered to the winds there. The 114 will at the very best of it settle for third place on this grid. What a sudden shift. It looked... you can't like blame me for thinking that he was celebrating somehow there. More trouble on the way for the 114. That back end stepped away not once but twice through turn 4. That has come at such a great cost there. Just under 6 minutes then left to go. So where things stand with 5.5 minutes left to go. Durga leads the charge. Vermaak in second. Cheeseman third. Pole fourth. Kowalczyk fifth. That rounds out the GT3s. Then down into GT4. Lebey in first. Jolicoeur second. Horvath third. Albert fourth. Martel fifth. That's with 5 minutes against the clock here. Feasibly 3 to 4 more laps before the end of today's race. If I'm not mistaken now, I think I've seen even more trouble in the way for the 114. No, as a matter of fact, maintains third for the time being. Four minutes left to go. You can see a nearby battle here. This is for Division 4. 2.6 seconds is the gap between Albert and Martel. Two Chevrolets at the back of the GT4 grid. That could be one to keep an eye on in the next 3 minutes here. We'll just take another look around the grid. See where the rest of the grid is forming up. That gap's still 6.4 seconds. So we've only feasibly 2 more laps left to go before the end of round 6. Could it be in the chances here for Daniel Durga to take home an inaugural debut race win here with Ferrari? The chances are definitely there. 2 minutes then left to go. Not much left really in the way of things to discuss. It's just sort of watching with bated breath here to see where the next chapter comes from. But as it stands right now, it has been calm and unimaginably measured from Daniel Durga to take home what looks to be an inaugural win here on debut to the Solo Multiclass Endurance Championship. Only 10 cars left on the field then after all things said and done. Down towards Coca-Cola curve then. So we are on the precipice, I should say, of the final lap of today's race.
Leaders on final lap now.
So we are but moments away then from the making of history, so it seems, in an incredibly rare sight. We are seeing a driver on debut take home a race win here in NLRL. As the sun sets beyond the horizon here in Nurburgring, Germany, we are left with our mouths agog here in the sheer sight of a driver making his way through the woodwork on debut to take home a race win. Never say never though, still a few more corners to the line here for Daniel Durga. Tyler Vermaak is in pursuit though. You can see that gap has dropped down massively in the last 2 laps, so there is still the chance one mistake could make or break the Ferrari's race today. Ben Cheeseman not too far away either, but lamenting that technical failure. Could have taken home an inaugural race win. His first ever in NLRL. Will miss out on the opportunity, sadly, this time around. Anton Pol has fought diligently after a disconnect to make his way up to 4th. Kowalczyk brings home 5th at the moment, but of course we still wait to the line to see how every single part of today's race plays out. Lebay leads the charge for GT4. Jolicoeur currently 2nd, Horvath Division 3rd, Albert 4th and Martel 5th. You can see those two incredibly close to one another, so there could be a fight for Division 4th on the very last lap of today's race. We check in here with Durga as no threats are ahead. There is no driver left on this paddock to stand in the way of his stride to his first ever race finish here, and it's what a way to kick off a career here in NLRL as he makes his way up towards Coca-Cola curve. I never thought I would see the day a driver on debut makes his way through the woodwork to the checkered flag to win here in the Solo Multiclass Endurance Championship. Daniel Durga wins in round 6. What an opening drive by the Slovakian. Brilliant, brilliant stuff. Vermaak takes home 2nd on his return to McLaren. Cheeseman to the line then for a McLaren 2-3 finish. Lamenting what could have been of today's race, he'll still take home a podium finish. Kowalczyk in 5th solidifies Anton Pol to 4th position. Let's catch on board though with Christian Lebay. Right in front of him is Timothy Jolicoeur. We'll have to drop back behind him if he means to do one more flying lap, I believe. Actually, no, because it's based off of the leading car, which is up in GT3. So, to the line, a Chevrolet 1-2 finish for Lebay and Jolicoeur. The 119 and the 69, 1st and 2nd in GT4. To the line, there you go. What a race it's been for them. Uncontested at the front of the field for the GT4s today. Another win under the belt of Christian Lebay, his 4th this season. On his way to the line then, another podium appearance today in division for Norbert Horvath and Ginetta. The number 987 comes around the last corner here to the checkered flag at the end of round 6. Hot on his trails, a real talk of the day besides the obvious of Daniel Durga. Here comes Anton Pol. He's fought things back to 4th place there. A fantastic strategy, put him ahead of the 991 for the end of today's race. To the line comes Albert from Martel. By a hair's width there to the line, 0.8 of a second. DNFs today from Miguel Rascon, Cas van Wiltzen and Mateusz Blaszka. Well, that was the end of today's round, and that's the 2nd race we've done today besides HCCL earlier on in the afternoon. What a race that's been today then, and what a closure to round 6. Oh, very well done then to Daniel Durga. An opening race win. Never would I have thought I'd seen the like. That's all from us here on TRTN. Very well done. To recount your race winners in division for GT3, Daniel Durga, number 12 with Ferrari. In GT4, Christian Lebay, number 119 with Chevrolet. What a race that's been then. And we'll be here at the Nurburgring for tomorrow for the Sunday League at 6:30 BST.
So do look forward to that. That's all from us here on TRTN. Take very good care and good night.